listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is August 17th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Sunday?
Spencer, hello. I am struggling because I had to log out of Season 3 to prep and record the show today. I know. That's very sad.
I'm feeling it, man. Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of WoW this week and feeling very rewarded for my time. Mm-hmm. So it's been great. It was a great kickoff to the season. And I played probably more WoW, especially like yesterday, than was really responsible of me. So, I think, but I do feel like sometimes I just gotta let myself do that. I'm not going to do that probably again, but that's what happened yesterday. But it's been obviously a super busy week of just exploring all the new stuff, getting into the new end game and gearing up and all that, which is like one of the most fun times of the game. Outside of expansion launch, first week of the season, new raid opening it's like the biggest, coolest thing that happens. So
true.
So far, Season 3 has not disappointed, I don't think.
Yeah, no, Season 3 has been going great so far. It is probably the most I've played WoW this week in a while. I kicked everything off, obviously, by sort of starting out with some delves. And, well, actually, no, let's start with vaults. Let's start with vaults, because vault's really the first thing you do on a Tuesday. So, we had a raid prep Monday night. That went well for the raid this week. It was our final meeting before we actually started killing bosses. Got the vault stuff on Tuesday. And vault for me, I didn't take it right away because our team had a strategy in place for vaults. And it was, if you got a tier piece from your vault, you were to notify our raid leader that you got a tier piece so that we could try and figure out how to get as many people their 4 sets or 2 sets or whatnot as possible. And so I happened to RNG a set of heroic tier legs out of my delve vaults from last week. And so I put that in. Now, the heroic tier legs are a piece that I generally would not wear because they're really bad secondary stats, which is unfortunate whenever Blizzard chooses to do that with tier pieces, but it happens. However, it does allow me potentially to get, some tier set bonuses going. So in that case, it's obviously worthwhile taking and then replacing once I get some other tier pieces down the line. So what ended up happening is Tuesday for me was delves. It was starting into some Mythic Plus. I basically held off on my Druid from doing anything Mythic Plus wise until I found someone who's doing like a 7 or an 8. So the initial key I got for the week was a 7 that I got. I plugged into a key and got a 7, and then was able to push that up to an 11, and was able to play around inside 10s and 11s pretty easily as far as that goes. There was obviously probably about 6 or 7 hours of time spent trying to find groups over the span of the week that was a failure of time, where I was just queuing and being rejected, which is just the nature of Mythic Plus. And if you don't have your own group and a group that you can sort of put together with a guild. But I also did a lot of keys. So I think I'm in the 20s for keys at this point that I've run this week. And I've definitely got all of my 10s done. I had a 12 done, I think, this week in one key, so I should get a high key out of that. The overall IO, I think, is in the 2500s or close to it, so that's great to be that far along so quickly. Was really nice. But the thing that helped that out the most was Wednesday night. We did this, and this is something we were only doing in our first week. We did an extra raid night. We rarely do extra raid nights. Wednesday night we did an extra raid night. We're excited about it. So we did, essentially we're doing normal splits this week is what we basically did. So we took our raid team, we divided up a certain amount of mains and alts, and we invited in a bunch of friends who wanted to come along as well, and cleared the raid fully on normal on Wednesday night. It took about 2 hours to do, which was great. And out of that, because I'd received a tier piece from my vault, and so much of our raid team had received a tier piece from their vault, more than half of our team has their 4 set on Wednesday night, which was wild because we got a catalyst charge coming into this week. You then earn a catalyst charge for getting over 2,000 M+ score. You then have the piece from your vault. and then you get one piece from raid. And so based off of, I got one of the things off the last boss, which you can turn into any tier piece you want, which, by the way, this go around is way better than it previously was, because this go around you buy a token and you then use the token, and the token then converts into a tier piece, which means there's a chance for tertiaries and sockets, whereas last season there wasn't. You just bought the actual piece, so you weren't getting that opportunity for tertiaries. So that's exciting that they changed that up. I think that's a good change. But that meant, that literally Wednesday evening, all I had to do was get up to 2K IO score, which I did on Thursday, and I was able to put together a 4 set. And so I'm healing on my Resto Druid. That's what I'm doing. I'm maining this season, which is going really well. I've loved being back to main spec healing. It's really fun to do, and I just genuinely enjoy it. And it meant that I could switch from doing Heart of the Wild build to Wildstalker, which is the other hero tree stuff for Resto. And it is very fun. It is really fun to do. Basically a lot of your heals then proc AoE heals off of other people and spread flowers everywhere. So if you're watching Race to World First, you see these like pods of flowers exploding everywhere. That's their Resto Druid just having a good time with Wildstalker, which is really neat. So there's a lot of fun aspects to that. So I really enjoyed that. That then got me even more amped up to just run more keys and do more things, because I was just enjoying healing on Resto and feeling powerful in that sense. The biggest other factor is doing Mythic Plus. That I'm finding, like, if I could give anyone a tip, which obviously we'll talk more about Mythic Plus later in the show, it's just be sure interrupts are happening. This is the week where interrupts are like critical, because this is the week where people are the least geared. So any kind of bolt that's being cast generally does 2/3 of someone's health. It's like a 7 million or 8 million damage bolt. And if someone gets hit by 2 of them, they're toast. If someone gets hit by anything else and that, they're toast. So it's certainly something to keep your eye on, are those bolt sort of things. But yeah, my week started off really strong. I'll talk about the tail end of it after you sort of recap what you did on your first couple of days.
So I had, my time in Delves last week really paid off, because I opened Vault and I had hero, set, legs, and shoulders to choose from.
Oh man, yeah, choices.
And so I went, I guess I'm not taking anything yet, because there's a chance I can get something else. So
exactly.
Unfortunately, I did my Delves right away, which meant I got the Crack Keystone quest, which means I got cursed with a +2 Keystone this week.
Oh, dear.
Which is annoying, because it's just, there's been no reason to do that. And, I guess I'll get into that point later. But anyway, so I got my Delves done. I want to get my 11s done for Guildeds and just make sure that was good and whatever. I couldn't get into a Yogg group before raid on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of a bummer, because I just went to raid with my season 2 gear. But man, the new raid is super cool. It's gorgeous inside. It's so epic. I don't like throwing that term around, and that's sort of it is sort of like the Blizzard buzzword, right? But
sure.
There's just no other way to describe this place. You're in like outer space, hovering over the remains of the shattered planet. There's all this ethereal energy crackling all over the place. You're turning into an energy form and zipping around, and you're fighting this city-sized void monster at the end. The first night I think we got through 7 of 8 normal in like 2 hours, and then Wednesday we came back. We finished up Dimensius. We didn't actually look at Dimensius on Tuesday. We didn't have any videos or anything at that point, so it was like, we're not gonna whatever. Let's,
Tuesday rating, man. That's it. You gotta go in there blind for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we had like a few minutes left. We're like, all right, we'll come back. We tried to do heroic Plexus before the end of the night. We had time for like one poll and it just didn't go. So we came back Wednesday. We finished up Dimensius, and about 6 polls. I would say 5. One of them didn't even count, because it was one of those immediate wipes. So. Really not a bad fight to learn on normal. It looks great. It was really fun to do. So that was cool to just get that done right away. Hopped into Heroic for the rest of the night. We got the first 2 bosses down, and we got a couple hours up tonight. So we'll see if we can get any farther in Heroic raid. It's just, it looks great. The fights, on normal, most of the fights are pretty simple and straightforward. There is a bit of a pink on pink thing happening in this raid, where a lot of stuff is kind of the same color, but...
It's that unfortunate thing of Blizzard essentially said, hey, we want to emphasize spells and make things easier to see. Unfortunately, we've already designed the next raid. So
right.
we're not really paying much attention to that at the moment in this particular raid. Like it just feels that way. Like I feel like they could have very much gone, okay, our theme is going to be dark purple and we're going to do bright pink for all of the mechanics. And you'd be like, this looks better, but
right.
Orange or green or red would be much more legible on these colors than you choose to do. Even like a fluorescent blue would look really good on this stuff versus doing, as you said, this like kind of like slightly off pink purple with pink abilities. And you're like, great, this is like hard to see everything through the raid.
I mean, first impression, I didn't think it read too bad at all, but I could see that maybe being a problem for people who either struggle with that or just maybe as the fight goes on and as difficulties go up and complexity increases. But I mean, my first impression of the raid was super strong, probably stronger even than Liberation, which I thought was a really good raid at first rip, and it was really good on normal and stuff. I think it's important to have those low difficulties be accessible and fun.
Yeah, so I'll talk about first impression here too for a second. So I'll say first chunk of bosses, like great, really good experience. I think bosses in general in this, they're very strong, well-designed encounters that just feel fun to do. Like and there's enough variety there that doesn't feel like they've repeated a whole lot of stuff. So I think in general they're going to be really fun encounters to deal with. This raid suffers from the same thing that Undermine did, which is that casino floor amount of trash. The interesting thing happening where you kill the first few bosses and then you have to travel to the next hub area that you're going to be going to bosses from. And that travel path is huge. And we already knew because we were in there on Wednesday, which meant, Liquid and Method and these people had already hopped in ahead of when we were there. So as they were starting their splits. So all of our raiders we basically did a vote of like, do we want to do what they were doing, and as far as Liquid and them were doing, of skipping this chunk of trash. In order to skip this chunk of trash, there's nothing like weird game breaking, because for me those are just automatic no's. We're not doing that. That's not going to happen. I will not participate in things that could potentially compromise my account. Like, that's not okay ever. So the skip though literally is a death run. It's just a really long death run. You run probably for about 2.5 to 3 minutes straight of like cat form / using movement speed abilities, kill off 2 different sort of like boss mods that then unlock other areas. At one point there's like a drop that you just sort of like run off a pipe and fall like a really good distance, and unless you have a slow fall ability you're just not going to make it. But at the bottom of that there's like a teleporter pad you click, and the moment you click that teleporter pad, it moves up everyone's respawn. It moves up the teleport ability, so when you respawn you can just teleport to the next hub area and skip this like what would have been 40 minutes of trash, depending on how well you were doing it, right? 30 minutes of trash, depending on how well you're doing it. And that is just weird, because it felt very similar to me as, okay, they just did this in Undermine, where you break into the casino and then you have to run through this huge amount of trash as you work your way through it. And it's a really cool space. I just wish, same thing as I wish with Undermine, where I wish a lot of those NPCs were non-hostile. It was just people gambling at a casino, so why would they want to fight you when you entered it? And sure, there might be some staff that are bouncers or whatnot, but you could have made those 2 or 3 mini bosses that you sort of killed and then were through, as opposed to it being like wave after wave of trash. You sort of, chunk your way through to try and get to the bosses. And this felt very similar to that, of like, okay, there's just a lot of trash in this area for this one part of it. Like, I get that there's very little trash up front and there's very little trash towards the tail end. There is one other skip that people were doing for a death run. But the moment you see like the initial reaction of your player base be, we should death run this trash because there's a ton of it and it's going to waste a whole bunch of raid time, I feel like that's a big clue as to what's going through people's heads about what you're doing. And there's just too much of it, and it just takes too long. Now, that said, part of the renown track, which I think is weird, but okay, is that you will reduce the health of trash and be able to move through the instance faster. And I was like, okay, so like they want you to have to slog through it in your first introductions of the raid, but then it will get easier passively through you killing bosses week to week and getting more renown. That seemed a little strange, but I get where their mind's at. It's just, again, I feel like when you're designing these raid encounters, like, I was talking about Trial of the Crusader being one of my favorite, sort of like Lich King era raids that was really fun to do. There's no trash in that entire thing. You just go in and spawn bosses and enjoy fighting them. It's a really good time. I don't think the player base would be angry if you did something similar in some of these cases. It used to be that like the trash was there to teach players mechanics for those bosses. Now it just feels like the trash is there for flavor and it's not a taste anyone likes. So that's just one of those odd things to me. So yeah, I think that is the one downside to it. Otherwise, the skyboxes are gorgeous. The art is gorgeous. The bosses, I think, are working really well as far as mechanically goes. The only nerf I would put out there, the only thing that I would say on normal difficulty is like stands out as something to me that is just out of whack, is the pushback that Dimensius does. I think his pushback is too strong on normal. The fact that I can Savage Roar the raid so that we can all, Stampeding Roar the raid so that we can all move faster. And even in cat form with that up and running against it, I get pushed backwards, means that pushback's too hard on normal, is what I'm specifying. I don't think people should struggle to stay on the platform or not flying into the void guys during that encounter on a normal difficulty if you have those speed boosts in place. I think that should be a player counterable thing when it comes to using Stampeding Roar and abilities like that, Windrush Totem, that sort of thing. So that's the one note I had that sort of stood out as like they should probably fix this for this raid for folks that are getting there and doing it. But yeah, otherwise it felt pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back in there tonight and see if I don't know if we can get any farther than 2 of 8 heroic. I mean, we have some people who are coming in really fresh. Like our core people are all coming in 680 plus, and it's like, well, you're pretty much geared to do the beginning of heroic, but how many people can you carry? That's the question, and the answer is probably not that many. So we'll see what happens tonight. But after Tuesday night, did some low keys. Having to push up rank 2s is so obnoxious, and then it's like you get stuck with everybody's got 2s, and so then you gotta, luckily somebody done keys earlier, so I think we were starting with something a little higher. I think we were starting with 6s or something. So of course my key is still in the dumpster and probably won't get resolved this week, but it is what it is. So we got a couple keys done first night. You'll
do a 10 this week at some point, I imagine, and then you'll get a 10 next week and you'll be fine.
Next week it'll be. I wish that they would change the system so that once you've timed a dungeon of a certain rank, you can upgrade your keystone, maybe even like
to one level below
one rank lower. Let me turn my 2 into a 9 or what. Please. But anyway, that's a week 1 frustration every season, but it is what it is. That was pretty much Tuesday, just getting our feet wet with keys and stuff, getting some bosses down. Wednesday, I did manage to get into a YOG group, and my heroic cache contained a shoulder item. So I took my legs out of my vault. I immediately had heroic 2-piece, and Prot Warrior Mountain Thane 2-piece is awesome because the way that Mountain Thane works is you have a chance to proc Thunder Blast, which is an upgrade to your Thunderclap, and it makes it do more damage, and there's other effects in the talent tree that modify Thunder Blast. Well, what the 2-piece adds on is an additional chance when you Thunder Blast to cast Ionizing Strikes, which is a series of 5 extra lightning bolts that hit targets that got hit with your Thunder Blast. So it's just so much lightning everywhere, and it does pretty significant damage. The 4-piece makes it do just obscene damage. So I should be ready for 4-piece pretty soon if I have decent vault luck this week coming up. So that's just super fun. It looks great, and it does a ton of damage, and it's set and forget. It just happens. You're just playing the spec normally. So I've really been loving that. It's just cool looking, and it's fun, and it's effective. So after raid Wednesday, like I said, we got through 2 of 8. Lumathar was a little bit like, I think it was me and my co-tank and like 1 healer left at the end. But again, like we got a lot of people who aren't really ready to be at 2 of 8 heroic after 1 week or 2 nights even. So whatever, it worked out. We got kills. It's going to be good vaults for people and stuff. So that was really fun. Good.
Don't forget what you were to say.
Just one thought about Lumathar, right? Like once you get to rank 2 on the renown track for the raid, you get a thing where Lumathar has a chance to drop the threads or whatever. Yeah. You take him to the vendor outside, and you can get cloaks. You don't get cloaks, right? So you need a cloak to match your tier set. Yeah. I didn't know how this worked, but you literally get one thing. You trade one thing for one class, and then you get all 4 appearances. So I already have all the warrior and monk class appearances for this season.
That's very cool.
Like that, really great system. I think that's a fun way to kind of just ease the the collector, the completionist pain around like, well, it's cool that we have an artifact cloak that has this cool effect, but I need my tier set to look on point. Like it's like second boss, kill it, you get a chance to get the things, you turn them in, you pick a class, now you have all the appearances for this season. I love that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, while you're talking tier sets, I want to talk Boomkin tier set stuff because it's very sad. And so I just wanted to get that out there for the boomies out there. So first and foremost, Keeper of the Grove, I think they've done a pretty good job with the tier set bonuses for Keeper of the Grove for Boomkin. The ability basically is when you pop Celestial Alignment, you get a Dryad that comes in to help you, and it casts Starfalls at an increased power, and it casts Star Surges that then splinter off and hit multiple targets. It's kind of neat. Like it's a neat ability. The part of it that feels good for pressing the button isn't necessarily this Dryad shows up. It's when the Dryad leaves, your next 2 Star Surges do a huge amount of damage, like 300% increased damage. And so I saw like an 18 million damage crit Star Surge, which just felt really good when you did that. And this is like, obviously low gear when I'm doing this in for this season. And so that felt really neat. So I think that one, like it's pretty close to where it should be as far as how that feels and is fun to play. Elun's Chosen feels terrible. Like it just feels terrible. So how it works is you cast Starfires, and when you Starfire, you essentially have a RNG chance to build up a buff that lasts 20 seconds and can stack up to 6 times that will increase your spell damage for a window of time based on how many stacks it has after you cast Fury of Elune. Now, Fury of Elune is a 45-second cooldown. And in general, you want to be using really frequently because it's a 45-second cooldown. It generates a bunch of astral power for you, and it does some damage. So like you want, and a bunch of other things proc off it. So like you want to be casting it frequently. However, the tier set bonus does not proc frequently enough, which means that oftentimes you get to the point where Fury of Elune's off cooldown and you have 1 or 2 stacks of Starfire that you've sort of cast out there for this buff, and you're like, do I throw my Fury of Elune now? Do I try and build up more buffs? Which one should I try and do? How many more Starfire should I cast before I cast Fury of Elune? There's this like thing where you end up holding on to an ability that's a 45-second cooldown, because if you use it immediately and then you build up 6 stacks, you're like, well, now I feel really bad because now I have 6 stacks that are just waiting around for me to have 30 more seconds for Fury of Elune before I can use it. And it feels really bad. Like the RNG on it feels bad. That aspect of it feels bad. The damage bonus is neat. Like it's a neat concept of, hey, you cast Fury of Elune, this thing goes off, you can get like 18% increased spell damage. That is kind of like a cool aspect that can happen for people. It just, the fact that sometimes I have 6 stacks very quickly and sometimes I don't, and the majority of the time I have, like, let's say we average it, I have 2 is what I would say. On average, when I'm going to throw a Fury of Elune, I have 2 stacks of this thing, which is 8% spell damage, which is very different between 8 and 18. I'm just putting that out there. So it's one of those, feelings of like, okay, I don't like a tier set that encourages you to hold on to abilities to try and hope for an RNG chance. I also don't like that the buff procs so infrequently that more oftentimes than not, I'm throwing Fury of the Elune because I'm down to 2 or 3 seconds left on the buff and it's not refreshing. So like I'll get 1 stack and that stack will count from 20 all the way down to 1 without me getting another stack to refresh it. So that, like, why is that happening? That just shouldn't be happening, period, ever. Like I get if there's an RNG chance because you don't want people to basically just cast 6 Star Surges and 6 Starfires in a row and get to a 6 stack really quickly. And I get that that's not your intention. But that would feel better than the way it currently does, which is I cast a Starfire, I get no stack, 1. Great, I got 1. Keep casting it, nothing for 20 seconds. Okay, I guess I just have to throw Fury of Elune and get 4% increased spell damage because I didn't proc anything. Like that, it just shouldn't be happening. So there's something broken with Elun's Chosen for Resto Druid, in my opinion, when it comes to how the Starfire stuff is reacting with the tier set. Resto Druid one, I will say the Keeper of the Grove is all right. It feels okay, but the Wildstalker one feels great. It's right, like it feels right where it should be. I hope they don't tweak it too much because it feels very good to do the Wildstalker stuff. So I'm hoping that sticks around where it is, and maybe they buff up the Keeper of the Grove one a bit to make it a little bit more attractive to Resto Druids on that side. But yeah, tier sets.
Yeah, I mean, we did see a lot of last-minute bug fixes on tier sets. We saw a lot of, testing, public testing, reporting that stuff was broken or feeling broken,
right.
On PTR. And they were pushing fixes very late in they were pushing fixes to the tier sets after patch.
Right.
So, I wouldn't be surprised if stuff is still not working the way they wanted to. That sounds like the opposite of a set and forget bonus. I haven't messed with Colossus at all yet, just because I don't really like playing Colossus. And if I'm, so I don't know, maybe I'll check it out for raid at some point, but I'm just having too much fun with Thane. So yeah, that also really helped with keys. I mean, it's great in multi-target situations to just get all that extra stuff. So yeah, we did a bunch of keys Wednesday, just kind of starting to, okay, now we don't have to do super low stuff. We're getting a little bit higher. Ended up playing extra nights for keys. I played a ton Thursday, Friday, yesterday, just doing that. Ended up getting to like 2,300. I'm like a shade under 2,360, which is very high for me for week one. That's probably the highest since they've kind of gone to this system. Got 2 10s in time yesterday, so that's great. A bunch of people will start with 10 keys for next week, so that's perfect. I just need to get one more 10 in for a full Myth Vault row, and I mean, that well exceeds my expectations for what I was going to accomplish this week. I'm sure we'll get one in tonight or maybe tomorrow. So then hopefully I just get something usable and then just start pulling Myth upgrades out of the vault every week. That would be ideal. In most previous seasons, it's like, okay, I have a week where I have to take a hero item because it's better, and like I have a myth choice and it's not very good. So hopefully I can skirt that week and just get right into, getting meaningful power that's going to last me for the season. That would be great. It's always a little touchy around getting your 4-piece assembled, and the set bonuses are so powerful this season by, seemingly by design, right? It's the end of the expansion. They want to really amplify these hero talents that were sort of the big new thing coming in for classes. So I get why, and I think it should be. I'm on board with that design, but sometimes you have to make compromises around upgrade tracks and stuff just to turn that 4-piece on. Like you were saying, like this piece isn't statted well, but it activates the bonus, so it's better than stats right now. So we'll see, but hopefully I'm just ripping myth stuff from now on. And then, man, so many. I haven't done enough delves. I think I've done about 25 keys. 24 keys, 25 keys this week, but that means I haven't had a lot of time for delves. I kind of got hijacked because I meant to be doing delves. People were like, let's do keys, and I'm not going to say no. I mean, how much did I talk about at the end of last season? Sort of just the enthusiasm being gone, people not wanting to do stuff. If I'm around and people want to do stuff, it's the beginning of the season. The enthusiasm is there. I want to take advantage of that and, play with my team and all that.
Right.
But I got the Warriors delves done, which now seems like maybe it wasn't even necessary because I'm probably not going to be picking my delve row. I got all the way up to rank 3 on the journey. We'll talk about the journey a little bit later. Yep. But there was a problem with journey, and it wasn't filling up fast enough, and you couldn't get your bounties with the maps and the heroic piece until rank 2. But so I knocked that out. Basically, what I was doing was 11s on my 3 tunes that I'm taking through, my warrior, monk, druid, just to get their gildeds, right? And then that gave me a bunch of power, and it's like, okay, now I can go back through, run lower stuff for vault, and get those bounty maps going and get some more hero pieces. So I kind of got through all that process. I need to finish vault delves for the monk and druid, and the frustration there is, man, the coffer keys are just like it's so annoying, and I don't understand why I have to do stuff I don't want to do in order to do stuff I want to do. And it gets really bad when you get into you're running 3 tunes, right? Because you got to do
that's true.
Event 3 times in a row. You got to do those world quests to get that box 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about this in the show last week because it wasn't happening yet, but they changed the way that the older content works in relation to the keys. The caches don't give full keys anymore. They give 50 fragments.
Yeah.
So you can only really get I think you can only get 3 keys from stuff because you got your weekly thing that you get in Dornegal. You got your special assignment world quest on Koresh, and you got your ecological succession cache. I think those are the only things that give full keys now. And then I think all of the older stuff gives
half
50.
Keys. Yeah.
So I think you can probably get more keys because I think all that stuff gives fragments, so you can do it all, but they all give half a key, so you got to do more stuff for, it's just a lower rate of return on your time investment in getting the keys, which is the thing that you just want so you can get champ gear out of your delve. I don't know. So I don't know. I have to spend a bunch of time before reset, just collecting keys on these 2 tunes so that I can do, delves and get champ gear is a nice upgrade for them. They came out at 671 out of last season. They were hero geared. So I need them, and it's just I have to deal with that.
Sure, and I think you hit a critical point there, which is you're talking about 3 characters, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, with 1 character, because that's all I'm really focusing on at the moment, it hasn't been that bad. I'll say there's a few things that are really, really important when it comes to delves this week in particular that are not evidently apparent to a lot of people. And the first is that you get almost twice as much reputation towards the journey for delves from doing an 11 versus doing an 8. Like almost twice as much. It's massive. It's a huge leap. You get like 340, I think it's 340 or 240 from doing an 8, and you get 700 and something from doing an 11. It's a big jump. And when I'm talking bountifuls here with a key is what I'm talking about. And that is something that is a very big difference when it comes to how quickly you sort of get through that journey. So last week, because I was like, look, I have a ton of things I want to do, and same thing this week, I had a ton of things I want to do. I'm just going to run 8s because that gets me the max reward out of my vault. I'm not going to worry about it very much. And then you have that realization of, oh, well, the maps to get a heroic piece are off of level 2 or stage 2 or step 2 of the journey. That means I have to get 8,400 of this reputation and progress on the journey before I actually can start getting that 1 heroic piece for the week. Well, I've been using my keys and whatnot to do 8s because I just want to get through this and get the rewards done and move on to the next thing, not realizing, oh, I am essentially saying that like this is gonna work against me. I might as well suffer through taking a longer time to work slowly and progressively through an 11, because it basically counts as running 2 8s when it comes to that sort of progress along the quest chain for the journey. I might as well do that versus then having to run more 8s total overall to try and get to that step. So like it was a weird realization, and it happened later in the week for me, where I sort of had that like, oh shoot, I should have been running 11s this whole time, because then I only would have had to run 8 11s for me to be able to get to this point and be able to get my heroic reward, versus having to run like 15 or 16 delves because I was running 8s and then realized like late into it, oh, I should be running 11s and started running 11s. Like that was really unfortunate, and it had nothing to do with the fix that we're going to talk about later. That did help, but that was a very minor help for me because I was running 8s, so it wasn't nearly as substantial of a leap and push in this sort of thing. So like I'm just past step 2 at this point, right? Which is a dramatic difference when talking to someone like yourself who's past step 3. Right. And a lot of that being past step 3 also comes from you running multiple characters, because when you run multiple characters in delves, you're getting even more of that progress, which then means the correct way to delve, if you will, and I put correct inside quotations for people, is that, you essentially need to run multiple characters. You need to run a whole bunch of different characters to just progress through that storyline really quickly, level up brand really quickly, and then delves will be a lot easier. And I think a system that encourages you to have alts in order to gain character power is a bad system in general for me. It's just like that is a flawed thing. So in my opinion,
I agree, but I think that I don't think it has anything to do with I'm sorry to break in, sure, but like it's just a function of the number of delves you do. And so because your brand is account wide, your curios are account wide, all that stuff, right? So it's like you don't have to use keys, and I guess I should point that out in my complaining about the lack of keys. If you don't really care about getting the champ cash at the end of the delve, you don't have to do that, but bountifuls do give you better progress, so the more that you run bountifuls with keys, the better. Yeah. And you are limited to 4 bountifuls a day, but also like when it just comes to progressing brand and all that stuff, you could just keep running the same delve over and over again if you want to, and you'll get the curios, you get the flicker gates that can result in huge XP bombs for Bran, and Bran's power gets really noticeable once you start leveling them up and getting the new curios. So in terms of the overall power, I don't know. I think it's just a function of how many delves you have an appetite for, and that can certainly change with the amount of tunes that you're running, right? Like if you have 1 tune that you care about playing, you probably don't want to do 24 delves a week. There's really not that much in it for you after number 8. But you could, if your goal is like, I'm power leveling Bran, I need all epic curios, I want to smash this content, you can just grind it up on one toon. It's just the carrots on the sticks start dwindling. You start running out of reasons to do that 9th, 10th, 11th delve for the week.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things to me of when you look at the play, and this is what I sort of look at. We have a spreadsheet that tracks the activities that our raiders have done this week, right? So here's Mythic Plus Keystones, right? I've run 22. The highest person in our guild has run 69 Mythic Plus Keystones this week so far. That's what they've run, all right, in my guild. The lowest person's run 9, so they're going to get their 10 in for the week, I'm sure, over the next couple of days, and not a big deal. Delves, okay? There's someone in our guild who's run 207 delves. So, like, and that's obviously multiple characters, other stuff they're working on, but, like, yeah, like, that's... They've maxed their brain out.
Hopefully not the same player who did the 69 keystones.
No, different person. Yes,
okay, good.
Different people. The individual who did that has still done 37 keystones this week. But yes, they have spent a lot of their time just playing World of Warcraft this week. So it's one of those situations where you sort of look at it and contemplate, like, okay, with the time that people are putting into this, multiple characters to me just screams of, hey, here's the reward for you. And I dislike that there's a system that gives character power in such a predominant way early on in a season like Delves, and then to place the heroic reward at step 2, which people are doing the math early on and being like, it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks for someone who's just using their keys every week to get there. Doing 8s, it was like 6 weeks to get to step 2. I was like, okay, there's something wrong with your system if that's what you're looking at, because it falls into the reputation trap of, by the time you actually get to the point where the rep vendor's selling you the item that you were looking at and thinking was really neat in week 1, you've now outgeared it and it's now useless, right? Because you've gotten those rewards from, like, world quests that are now generating things that are better than what was coming off of a rep vendor, which just felt really weird in those situations. And it sort of happens with Renown Track too late in the season, where by the time you're like getting, hey, guess what, you've unlocked adventurer gear that you can get out of, you're like, that's great, I'm wearing champion track, so there's no reason why I would need adventurer now. Like, that is something that happens with a lot of these systems where, and I know it's sort of guided and tuned for a different type of play style than some of the people are doing out there. So, it's a wild thing to me that they went live with Delves with having maps be gated. I don't think they should have been at all. I think it's 1 map a week. Like, you're not talking about some huge crazy reward thing that people can spam. Like, you're talking about something that's on a checklist for a lot of players, versus us looking at running Mythic Plus and you just get heroics at 7s. Like, you're running 7s and you just get a heroic piece out of every single Mythic Plus you run. They drop for people inside the group. Like, why are we limiting Delves to, hey, you need to run X many tier 11 Delves to be able to get to step 2, to be able to get 1 piece of heroic gear a week from a map that drops that requires you to run a Delve and generate, and in most cases generate a boss to get the map in the first place and then complete the delve on that difficulty. And I feel like that seems strange. It feels really like Mythic Plus has always been such a weird outlier, but it feels weird that a +7 Mythic Plus gives you a reward that takes so much effort for a delve person to get 1 of a week versus a continuously farmable source in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, there's a bit of an identity crisis, I think, around what delves are supposed to be and where they're supposed to land. And also, I feel like gearing across the game just skews so heavily to M+ that it's a little absurd, honestly. Heroic raid is harder to organize than a +7. It's harder to get success out of it, and you have a lower chance of getting loot probably, like, per boss. And it's not something you can do all week long or all night long or whatever. You killed that boss, we'll see you next week. And it's this is a problem that's just kind of gotten worse over the years and just continued to diminish heroic raid as a primary activity for players. I mean, I've complained about it so many times since M Plus started in 2016. You can probably go back and listen about how afraid I was this was going to de-incentivize people to want to be on raid teams. And Delves, it's like they want them to be a cool endgame thing for solo players to do. You don't have to do them solo, but if you want to solo them, like it's an option, and it gives a lot of power, but not that much power. There's a limit to how much power you can get. It's a whole step back from the dungeon and raid system. So
right.
I don't know what the answer there is. I don't think the answer is to make delves harder at the top end to give harder stuff. I think the hardest delves are fine. Like,
I think that should be. Yeah, I agree.
They're not like super challenging if you're geared and confident and practiced, but you definitely have to do them right, and you have to do them with intent. You get the death limit and all that if you want to get your rewards. That's fine. I don't think there are delve players who are like, make delves harder. We need a myth track delve reward. Like, I don't think that exists either. But so they're a little gun shy about giving you like hero loot for it. It's I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of this philosophy get overhauled for Midnight. This was the first time out, right? And I think there's definitely been some missteps. I think the bounty thing this week was disappointing for a lot of players, but the biggest problem was the bug fix, I guess, which we'll get into a bit later. But yeah, I don't know. All that said, I have a whole bunch of stuff to do on alt still, which I don't know if I'm going to get to this week. So what it is. Like time walking too. Like I didn't finish the time walking 5s for any of my characters. I don't know if I will, because they're kind of just blasting past champ gear even in some ways. So that's that. I finished up the campaign. I did the epilogue. I thought the end of the campaign, the epilogue, was really cool. I love the way that it kind of wrapped everything up and then put it in a nice little bow on it for Midnight to start up. And also, there's plenty of leftover threads to explore with these characters in this scenario that might, come back in the future, maybe in a big way, maybe in a little way. They left doors open that I kind of didn't expect. So I thought that was great. I did my ecological succession, and man, everybody's just complaining about this. Like, I liked the writing and I liked the overall scenario and stuff of what you were doing. If they're all going to be this repetitive, though, this is going to be a slog for people. There was way too much taking photographs of bees in this quest line. Like, I get what we're doing and I get what the point is supposed to be. And it's sort of like, obviously it's a more chill activity. It's not like combat focused. That's fine. And that's not like the root of my complaint. But it was kind of hard to see the edges of the quest line that we were doing. It just kind of felt like we're doing the same thing over and over again in 3 different places. So hopefully they don't all feel like that. I love the idea of it. It seems like it's not off to a very hot start with players, which is unfortunate. And, we talk a lot about the ideal like time to spend in activities like this. And I think ecological succession, the bee quest line was about 3 times longer than it really had to be fun and to get the point across. So, just maybe something to that. But, because of the key, that's going to be a thing that I want to have in my normal rotation for sure. I think it will be cool to see the dome develop as we bring more creatures into it and they, start filling out the dome and everything. Like I said, the elevator pitch concept and the whole idea of it, I love. But by the time I had to take more pictures of bees again, I was like, okay, do I get my box yet? Like, where's my box? So, looking forward to the other ones hopefully being not quite so repetitive. But yeah, anyway, that was most of my week so far. And a lot of times on the show by Sunday morning, I'm like, well, that's it. Looking forward to reset. We'll clean up, whatever. I have so much more to do between now and reset. And I honestly don't know if I'll be able to get to it all. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. And it's actually a good feeling because it's just exciting. I want to play. I want to log in. I want to do stuff. I want to, I want to climb the ladder on these tunes that I'm playing. So I'm having a great time. I love where the content's at right now. And even Halls of Atonement, I didn't hate too much last night, even though that was the one I really didn't want to see back. We've just spent all week in Streets of Tazavesh. We just kept getting that key, and it was so brutal. Because everybody had a 2, and the one key we were pushing up just kept turning it into Streets. So, hey, we're getting really good at Streets now. So
I mean, good for you guys. That is a key where the first time I ran it this season, I went, they need to increase the timer on this, like immediately. Like a no death run, and you're like within seconds of not completing it in time. You're like, this key needs more time, like 5 minutes of time thrown onto this key. And not just that, you get into playing the instruments fight that's in there, and if one person missed their instrument during his shield phase, you didn't have meet the DPS check for breaking the shield. Like, it was just like, what are you doing with these encounters? It's just way out of whack. And so, yeah, they obviously, we'll talk about it later in the show, but yeah, they went in and hotfixed that. They added 3 minutes onto it and did some other changes just to try and make that a bit more of a fun experience for players, because it was, that was that key right away. That's why I was like, man, if I just kept getting the streets over and over again, I'd be really disappointed. What I lived in for most of the week was Floodgate, because everyone wanted trinkets out of Floodgate, and so everyone was just running Floodgate nonstop. And so it was very weird for me trying to get my 2K rating, even though I'd run like 7 10s. I didn't have 2K rating because it was just Floodgate 5 times and then 1 halls and then 1 other thing. You're like, okay, that's not enough rate. Like, I need to go find other keys. So I had to, that's what I did Thursday. Like Thursday, I just got together with one of my friends and we just kept queuing into other people's keys just to fill out these gaps. Like, we'll do an 8, we'll do a 9, we'll do whatever it is just to like get the rating to get me my 4 set. So that was a funny experience as far as that goes. I did do
I wanted to mention, that just triggered something I wanted to mention. I actually hit 2K Keystone Master without ever doing Halls of Atonement.
Nice.
That is how the tables have turned over the years. It used to be like Keystone Master was a thing you hoped you got done by the end of the season if everything lined up and you played well and consistently. And now it was like a day 3 thing, a day 4 thing for me, without even doing one of the dungeons in the pool. So that was kind of a cool feeling. And I think, part of it is just the amount of consistency and practice and that I've played with a lot of the same people and that we kind of have similar goals. Part of it is just, this is the way the on-ramp is. And I feel like it should be like this. Like, you can always do higher ranks. If you really want the huge challenge, you can keep going. You can push for title. It's all there. If you want the things that benefit your character and your account and make you powerful and look cool and have cool stuff, then, the on-ramp is just much easier. And I appreciate that. I had a great time in season 2, and this is just even better. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I can't wait to do more and just get up to that point where the biggest thing really is to get to Resilient 12s, where it's like we don't have to look at affixes anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my God.
I do not like having them back. I did not miss them. I thought I would miss them. I didn't miss them, and I don't like being back in them.
I agree. I didn't miss them either. I think affixes create a lot of hurdles that you don't have to deal with when you hit 12s, and I think that's very strange. The one thing about running, I did run, like I said, I ran a 12 this week, and it was 12 Floodgate. And it was surprising to me because obviously all of our stamina pools are much lower than they will be once we have better gear. There's going to be some tuning that happens with some mechanics. The duo bosses that are in Floodgate that essentially have the mines they lay down. You have to run the charge through the mines. The little guy does just a shot that just shoots people. That was doing 3/4 of whoever's health he hit. And I was like, okay, so if you get the debuff to dispel to be able to do this, that did slightly over half someone's health. And there were times where someone would get the debuff, I'd dispel it, and they get shot, and they're just dead. Just instantly. There's no like massive overkill, huge amount of damage. And I was like, okay, so there might be some things on 12s that they go in and tune. There's going to be some things, obviously, that we get bigger health pools to sort of handle better. But it was evident that once you started pushing up to that keystone range right now, there's probably going to be some stuff they have to tune and tweak and whatnot. I was going to say I did do time walking this week. I didn't get anything exciting out of the time walking bag from killing off Yogg. However, I did get Mim's head off of killing Yogg in that bag, which was very exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was like,
collector's bounty may be over, but you're still collecting the bounty.
Still collecting mounts, man. It's happening. So that's good. Yeah, no, I ended up at right now I'm at 2429. It looks like for my rating for the season, and obviously there's still some easy rating for me to grab. For those who are curious, the person who's run 69 keys this week is 2881, is where that person currently is. So. Getting closing in on 3K in the first week is that's a push, man. They're making some effort.
They are putting some work in for sure. Yeah,
they enjoy their Mythic Plus, that's for sure. But yeah, all right. With that, let's hop into what's going on this week because we've covered the whole front end of the show in almost an hour. Here we go. All right, this week in World of Warcraft is the World Quest bonus event, where the Sign of the Emissary buff is up, increasing your reputation gained from World Quests by 50%, and there's a quest to complete 10 of them that gets you 2,500 rep towards the major faction of your choice. This means if you're someone who's working your way along that renown track, this is a great way to get a whole bunch of extra renown for the week, because you'll get that 50% bonus, which is going to be really sweet.
Yeah, this is going to be huge on Koresh. I forget where I ended up. I'm at like 10 or 11, I think, with Koresh Trust. So I've been doing okay. I haven't really been slamming it, but I've been paying attention to it. But yeah, 50% World Quest gains is a lot. And remember, we get 2 rounds of it, at reset and then Friday night. Yeah. Take advantage of that, get those done, get a contract going maybe. And, you could do World Quest wherever and get rep for Koresh Trust. Get your key fragment World Quest going. And now, obviously, we don't know because we're a couple days out from reset, but I'm pretty sure when Season 2 rolled over and we got we actually had a World Quest bonus event the first week of patch, I'm pretty sure that you could do Goblin Cartels that week for your 2,500 reward choice. So that doesn't mean that they're going to let you do Koresh Trust for your 2,500 choice.
But they might.
But hopefully they will, and if they do, then that's massive. So hoping they do that because, the renown is just cool stuff to have, and it makes you feel good for playing the game. It's not like something that you need to save players from themselves from doing. So
yeah,
I feel like it's okay to just give us a free rank on the thing if that's what we want this week. But we'll see what they do on Tuesday, and then we'll know for sure.
Again, in general, if the big power reward you get out of doing this is a heroic piece of gear, people could just go and do a 7 and get a heroic piece of gear. So it's one of those things to consider. A catalyst charge would be a much larger reward than giving a heroic piece of gear. Anyways, all right. The other things to pay attention to this week, obviously, are your Koresh weeklies you want to do. There's the warrant you can get, which is another way to get one of those ethereal strands, as well as 400 Koresh Trust rep. The Constable Zoed Ash, the more than just a phase, that's the phase diving quest, where you get those 7 untethered coins, which can buy you some cosmetics, mounts, and toys and pets. You also get 300 Koresh rep from doing that. So both of those should be on your list. The Ecological Succession, which is what Jason was talking about just a few minutes ago, would get you that Wriggling Pinnacle cash, which is the way to get an extra key for the week towards your Bountiful Delve. So keep that in mind. The other sources that you can get ethereal strands to are Manaforge Omega bosses, Season 3 dungeon bosses, PvP wins, and in my opinion, the easiest and most consistent way, delves. If you go and do delves and you get the end of delve chest, you will get a strand, which is a really easy way to just get your strands for the week early on and get out there and upgrade your cloak power if that's something you're looking to do. So definitely be sure you're getting all that stuff in this week if you're trying to max out your progression for Koresh stuff.
Yeah, we only got a couple weeks left, right? I think we have this week and then 2 more weeks, and then the cloak is done. And that's all you got to worry about, ethereal strands on your account for the whole rest of the patch, which is pretty cool. But my kind of initial priority, I guess, this season seems like it's turning into log in, check vault, do my tier 11 delves on my main right away. Just do those 3. Then, hey, your cloak is upgraded and you have all the gildeds that you're going to get out of the system as early as you can get them. Then again, if you're like a raid logger, just get them from bosses. I don't know how consistent the boss drops are because I already had it going in, but just go get them off the bosses and then upgrade your cloak. It's cool. Like it's that sort of power grindy system with a very minimal grind, because if you're doing any kind of end game stuff, you'll get strands, and then you power up, and then you get the cool bonus for the week, and then off you go. Like this week, we just got mounting while phase diving unlocked just from the bonus in the cloak. I was kind of grousing about that last week because, we didn't have the power to do it yet, and you had to wait. Now we have it. You can just, there you go. Get your cloak trait, and now you can mount up and ride around in phase diving. And there's a lot of stuff to collect and explore and find there. So being able to mount is great. And yeah, we got a couple more bonuses kicking in, but right now it's super high priority, but then it's going to stop real soon, and then we're just done with it. I think we have 2 more upgrades to go. So I love the system. I think it's cool. It feels cool to have something that grows with you and that you power up. And also it's nice for it to not be like the focal point of every minute that you're logged into the game as well. It's just you, the player, benefit from having done this for as long as this patch is out.
Yeah, I'm really glad this doesn't have a really long tail. It easily could have and been like, yeah, this is something that will take you 2 months to finish the system, and this is something where, you know, you're gaining. It requires 4 strands a week or 4 strands to do an upgrade, and we're going to give you 2 strands a week, so it's every other week you get to do an upgrade. And like, they could have done all that sort of stuff with it, and they didn't. And I think it's great to go, hey, you know what, log in, participate in the game, do that for 5 or 6 weeks, you're done, nothing else you have to worry about. Like, that's great. I think that's just where it needs to be. So I'm quite happy with that. The catch-up mechanic should exist in that, hey, if you just do more of these activities, if you run more delves, you'll get more strands, and you should be able to catch up and be able to spend more to be able to actually catch up with everybody else. That's also really easy for people. So I'm glad they sort of did it the way they did, and I think that'll work out really well. This week should be Choose One. Now, we don't know necessarily what the Choose One would be for Koresh. It could be phase diving. It could be, you know, doing a variety of different things. We don't know. But we do know that previously there's been delves, world bosses. There could be the new world boss potentially in there. World quests, snuffling, dungeons, awakening the machine, severed threads pact, theater troupe, Undermine Explorer was one of those ones. So there's like a bunch of different Choose Ones. We don't know if they're just going to throw a new Koresh one into the rotation or not, involving that sort of thing, or whether we keep the same. But that should be what week it is. And that should be where you get your weekly reward from. So check out the Choose One quest.
Hoping for a world quests in the lineup this week, because that would dovetail very nicely with the weekly event. So that would be my go-to if that's on offer. But yeah, there'll probably be some new stuff and some old stuff mixed together. That's what we saw in season 2, right? There'd be some like Undermine specific stuff, and then there'd be Awakening the Machine and whatever else. So, you know, probably just different stuff to choose from. My approach is always try to double up on something. If I know I'm going to do this anyway, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If it's something that I can, you know, combine with, oh, well, this is a thing that gives key fragments, which I'm on the hunt for, okay, then that makes it an easy choice, right? So we'll see what all rolls up and what new stuff is in the mix for Koresh. But this is what it should be this week. But, you know, we're still getting the bearing for the rotation. It was delves this week, and so that's the way it's been going. This whole expansion, basically, it goes the Call the World Soul Choose One from Faerun, and then it goes Titan Disc Fragments from Daggerin, and then it goes Delves Weekly from Bran, and then it restarts. And you can hold on to it too. So, you know, you keep that in mind, I guess. But you probably want keys and the stuff that comes out of it. But if you can't get to it this week, then you can combine it with, you know, take a Delves Choose One and a Titan Disc Fragment next week and a Delves Weekly the week after, and then you do 3 Delves, and then you turn in your 3 weekly chests.
Yeah.
Could do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. The PvP Brawl is Warsong Scramble. So that's Warsong Gulch with... Actually, did we just have Warsong Scramble? Did it reset around again?
We did. It's actually Cooking Impossible this week.
It's Cooking Impossible.
That's
no
my
worries.
bad. Yes.
All good. So Cooking Impossible this week, and that's going to be us heading out into Pandaria to participate in those fields of cooking up soup. And in order to do so, you need to gather ingredients by killing off yaks and collecting carrots and all that sort of thing to throw into your pot. And the opposite team is attempting to stop you from completing your soup. So in order to pull this off, you can disrupt the other team from turning in their ingredients. You can steal the ingredients from your other team by knocking them down, or by obviously yoinking all the mobs on their side. Or you can just sort of play defense at your pot and make sure that anyone coming up to try and mess with your people, you're the one messing with them. So it's kind of a fun little objective. Like, the objective itself isn't a PvP objective. As far as like, you just want to go out, do PvE things, and then turn in PvE things over and over again. But the PvP aspect of it really messes with it. So get out there to the 4 Winds and help Nomi out with some of this wildness of putting together the soup.
Yeah, it's a cool brawl. You know, it's got more of a PvE element to some degree. Well, actually, to a large degree, I would say. Larger than a lot of other WoW BGs. So, and the theming is just so great. So, yeah, this is a cool one. We always say, like, I don't do brawls a lot, you know. And also, we've heard that, like, some brawls just straight up don't work. If something's rotation doesn't work. So, you know, your mileage may vary on that as well. But, you know, this is the one it should be on the calendar for the week. And, yeah, I think it's one of the more fun ones, at least in terms of design. So hopefully it's actually working. But
yeah,
I think there is something to brawls in general need some kind of a refresh or something. They just feel like dead content, you know. It's just I don't know. I never even like we talk about them on the show because we go through the calendar and then say, okay, this is what's coming up this week.
Yeah.
But I rarely hear anybody or see anybody doing them or talking about them or anything. And it feels like they haven't gotten any big updates in years. So it is kind of a weird thing. But, I definitely have fond memories of Cooking Impossible. I've definitely had fun in there.
I did too. I certainly enjoyed it when I was doing it as well. All right, let's talk Reshinor, all right? Because everyone's got opinions on Reshinor. And I know Jason threw out the tip last week of, hey, if you happen to fight this boss, be sure you're going to the downstairs phase, the phase dive phase, to get that extra crit chance and just lay in the heavy damage to kill this boss off quickly. It's still very evident that because the boss goes into this phase, not everyone's understanding they need to go downstairs, they still aren't, that this boss lives for a very long time. And we're talking like 6 to 7 minutes, which is a long time for a world boss in World of Warcraft. And also, if you think about what happens to a server when people are fighting a world boss, particularly on Tuesday and Wednesday, it's really unhealthy for everyone else who's out in Koresh trying to do something to have this like actual server infrastructure issue of, hey, there's a world boss being pulled right now and you can't loot for 3 or 4 seconds whenever you try and do something, or you're trying to cast spells and it's just hanging up before it actually casts because the server's just having a hard time with people all phased into your zone fighting a world boss. So yeah, I think there could still be some changes to Reshinor. Obviously, what we mentioned is those pink spikes that happen when you kill the ads for Reshinor. Be sure you're going up to those, using your cloak on them. It will send you to the downstairs phase. You can then DPS the boss. When the boss finishes their cast and phases back upstairs, it will pull you back upstairs. Sometimes once he's moved back upstairs, you can still phase dive down. If you do that, you then just can't damage the boss. So if you're wondering why you can't cast spells on the boss when you're downstairs, it's because the boss isn't downstairs, it's upstairs. So you have to come back, use your cloak to get out of that again and go back to damaging the boss. The mechanics for this boss are not super complicated as far as trying to live through them. They aren't super hard to heal through for a healer. It just takes a long time. I've seen this boss go up over 18 billion hit points. And it's like, okay, this is a lot for a boss that is just going to fly back and forth and phase dive in this one little valley area for people. But it does drop 688 loot. And you get your chance at a plate head or waist, mail chest or waist, leather feet or legs, cloth shoulders or waist, and a haste mastery ring. And that will be 1 kill per week. We'll give you a warbound version. It's just the first kill. After that first kill, you will not get any loot off of this boss. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, Reshinor is still on people's minds for, hey, this isn't really fun. They should do something to make this more fun. So I'm kind of with them on that.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to have like interactable mechanics and tie it into the theme of the space. If players aren't understanding what they're supposed to be doing, then that's a bigger problem. Like maybe there should be more stuff that just automatically phase dives you or something. Like if you kill the ads and then if you tagged one, then you phased it. Maybe people would end up phased without even realizing it. And then that would result in shorter fights. Like, yeah, you don't want the boss living 8+ minutes. It's a world boss, and we don't live in that space anymore. That's not how world bosses work in the modern game. So yeah. And one thing I noticed about the old world bosses is they seem to I think it could be a display bug with my world quest tracker, but I think the quests like give key fragments sometimes, which is like, man, I don't want to try to find a group for an old world boss that drops pointless loot but I'm in that mode where
50 key fragments. Yeah,
if I can get key fragments, I want them. But yeah, so I don't know. Like I continue to see people grousing about the model of, well, you get one guaranteed warband piece a week. I don't know how that this is not better for people than you maybe don't get anything at all. Like, I understand
80% of the time you get no loot. Yeah.
Like if you, I understand if you only play one tune, then you have a chance of getting stuff that you can't equip. I understand that happens, and I understand like why that can be bad or frustrating. But like, you could just get nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll never play a mail wearer and you get the mail chest. But like, what if you do, or what if you have one? Then at least you have something, and it's like, it's checked off the list for the week. If you play multiple tunes or you want to gear multiple tunes through the world boss, let me tell you how obnoxious it is to fly out to the caldera in the cavern every week and fight those 2 bosses that you had to separate.
Oh, man.
Nobody figured out how to do forever in 10.1. and get nothing over and over again. You know, the guaranteed drop and you move on with your life. Hey, did you get the thing for your armor class? Do you like it? Awesome. Congratulations. Have fun. It's not a vending machine. It's a boss in World of Warcraft, right? And the fact that it gives a guaranteed loot drop rules, and I hope they never change it.
I agree. I'm with you entirely on that, for sure. Okay, Mythic Plus affixes. So we were right. Jason's math based off of the previous 2 season launches was correct in what we were going to experience, which means we are going to continue on that trend and assume that we're right again, which means we're going to have Xal'atath's Bargain for Pulsar, where crystals spawn and move towards an enemy while in combat. Sorry, no, they spawn around your character and rotate around your character, and you will then essentially run to your buddy and soak their crystal, and they'll soak your crystal, and you'll get yourself a buff for mastery and leech based off of the crystals that you soak and how many of them you soak. That can go up to 20% mastery and 10% leech, which is really nice. Failing to soak these is the same punishment. It's that reduced damage taken by enemies by 20% and increased damage done by 10%. These are very easy to get. There shouldn't be anything in the dungeon pool right now that really prevents players from running over and helping their friend by getting a crystal. I can't think of a dungeon. Maybe Jason can think of a dungeon, but I can't think of a dungeon or an encounter where I'm like, oh, we really have to stay super spread out for this entire thing far enough away that like it's rookery and someone's on the other side of a cavern from the other person. Like I don't see that happening inside this dungeon pool. So Pulsar should be easier to deal with than Ascendant, because Ascendant required you to have people spec'd into something, wait around for the orbs to spawn, and address the orbs whenever they would spawn. And in some cases, you get all them but one, and then suddenly all the mobs are taking reduced damage and dealing increased damage, which feels really bad. So I'm hoping that, you know, we're not looking at that, and it's going to be a better week overall with Pulsar. So we'll have to have a look.
I think so. I've done so few Pulsar keys in my life, you know. Because I was out of affixes by about I think by the second time it came around, I was pretty much done with affixes last season. So it might be the same situation this season, but I didn't think it was that hard to deal with. It does require you to be kind of close together, but yeah, I don't know. I can't off the top of my head, I can't think of too many scenarios with this one where in this dungeon pool it's going to be a huge problem to get within range of each other's orbs. I'm sure I could come up with something if I really went boss by boss, and obviously there are going to be times where it's just not a great idea. This is also not an all or nothing thing. So if you can get 4 of them and one of them's just got a pop, you can probably deal with that. You can't ignore it, but you know, if getting that last one's going to result in a death or somebody being wildly out of position for another mechanic or something, you got to just do what makes the most sense for your group.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of situations with various keys with Ascendant this week where, you know, it spawns at the tank's location when the timer expires, right? And think of like last boss on Priory. We had Ascendant spawn like as we were going upstairs, and then it spawns downstairs because we were downstairs. It spawned on me as I was on my way upstairs. You know, then everything gets buffed. It's a big problem. It's just kind of annoying. This is at least tied to your character's positions. So, you know, you can quickly, in that kind of scenario, you just get close to each other as you're going up the stairs or once you've reached the top floor and pop them. So it should be good. Also, well, you know, I'd like to say that Fort is usually an easier way up the ladder, but I'm not sure how true that really is with current tuning. Because there is some nasty trash these days and some demanding trash. And I think they've done a pretty good job of reining most bosses into not being some giant pool of health nightmare that you can never stop doing the mechanics and actually kill the boss for. Obviously, this is not like a hard and fast rule across the entire pool, but I don't know. I like once we took the step up into 10s this week where everything had both.
Yeah.
I actually felt like Fortified was pretty noticeable on a lot of the mobs.
Yep.
Granted, it's week 1. And so everything is good, is as hard as it's going to be all season, right? This is the hardest the game is going to be in the first couple weeks. But I guess the good thing about Fortified that I will say early season that I always like to mention is you can complete the dungeon, right? The bosses will be more killable. When you kill trash, it stays dead. Even if you wipe on the trash because it's very hard or you can't survive a pull that's maybe optimal in terms of timing, if your goal is to complete the dungeon and get your crest and get a piece of gear and get credit towards your vault, you're not going to brick wall on a boss that your team just cannot kill for throughput reasons or whatever. So that alone has a benefit of just teaching you more of the dungeon, getting you some more of a benefit for your time investment in the system, stuff like that. I've had those moments early season where it's like, well, this boss just isn't going to die. What are we going to do, team? That's happened to me for sure. That doesn't happen on Fortified. Just CC something, pull it different, pull less, kill it, move on. Yeah, okay, the timer's empty, but who cares? You're still, working your way through the dungeon. You're picking up experience. Maybe you know what to do next time, and you're getting some reward at the other end. So I think Fortified is much better for that early season.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Mythic Plus tips, because there's one I want to share, which I shared with friend of the show, Mistledine, Corey. Fun guy who we've met up. I met for the first time over at the last BlizzCon that happened, and sort of followed along with the stream stuff since then and chat with him here and there. And he was running Arakara, and the first boss of Arakara obviously is the big spider boss that not only drops webs from the sky you have to dodge, does pulsing AoE that's a lot of damage, but also spawns these eggs. And these eggs hatch little minions, and the little minions walk towards the boss. And if they reach the boss's hitbox, the boss will consume them and get really buffed up and be very difficult to defeat. Most likely it's a wipe if this tends to happen, if there's not like 10% left on the boss when it happens. So there's a new strat this season going around, and these little spider ads do not melee nearly as hard as they used to this season. It was one of the things that got nerfed while they were revamping this for this season. And so the new strategy that I think works really well, and I'm quite happy with it, and still feels like, hey, no one needs to mess this up. It's still something that you have to do well to have it work properly, is whenever those eggs spawn, the person tanking the boss will position themselves so that their butt is towards the eggs about 10 yards away. The rest of the group positions themselves between the tank and the eggs. All of this is happening outside of the boss's hitbox. So ideally, the tank backs up just enough that they're outside of that red circle when you click on the boss. If you happen to be in that red circle, you still shouldn't, as a tank, be targeted, but we have seen it happen by these little ads. And what it means is when these ads spawn and walk towards the boss, they are going to walk on top of your group where you're already doing damage to the boss, and you can cleave them all down very quickly, and they're all stacked up neatly, and you're not running off to try and chase them. And it means you're already grouped up for when those white circles start dropping from the sky. You have to dodge those webs. You have to dodge all of those. You're already grouped up for that, which means you're already centralizing where those are going to be. There isn't someone who's way off on the other side of the room, or who's like gotten separated out, or whatever it is. You're just sort of like in a clump already because of how you're choosing to do these eggs. So that's the Arakara tip for the first boss I want to share with folks, because that is one that I think is a very new strat that we have not seen very much and has sort of kicked off this season, and groups are doing it, and it's making a big difference on how to handle that boss.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a lot different than even the familiar dungeons. There's some little differences and stuff that we're kind of getting used to, so that's a good one. I haven't tried that one yet. Maybe next time I will, because that boss has not felt good for whatever reason so far. So
yeah,
that sounds like it might help. Just as an example of stuff that has changed, apparently the tank is a viable target for the orb on second boss and Dawnbreaker, which I didn't know until I got targeted with it, and I used to just hide in the fountain, and I can't do that anymore. So I've had to kind of relearn some of these bosses, because they obviously don't want people just relying on the tried and true stuff from prior seasons, which is okay. It's just a little weird the first couple weeks where you're like, well, this is my comfort zone, and then you get blasted out of it, right?
Yep. No, there are differences, and we're finding them as we go, but we're watching these strats kind of evolve. So that Arakara one of just have no one inside of his hitbox, have the tank right at the boss's feet, but if they can ideally be back outside of that red box. If they're in it, it shouldn't be a big deal. You shouldn't get targeted as long as everyone's alive. The rest of your group is just between the eggs and the tank, and they just chill back there and let the little spiderlings beat on them, because you should be able to heal through that substantially easier than people being spread out and all over the place. Because that's the other really nice thing about the strategy, is the majority of healers in this game all benefit from a group being stacked up. Like your preservations, your resto shamans, your resto druids, like they all benefit from, even holy paladins, from people being grouped up and stacked up together. I'm sure there's some priest things. I know like some of the cooldowns that they have are very, player close by based. So Yeah, it just helps your healers out a ton. Your damage just gets to press all their cleave buttons, which they have fun with because they do big numbers. And you essentially just keep doing that. You know, you do that phase, you dodge all the white circles, next egg spawn, you immediately set up for the next set of eggs, and you're good to go. So definitely check that one out. Yeah, okay. Outside of that, we got the Eastern Kingdoms Cup coming back. That's going to be kicking off on August 26th and running till September 9th. So if you're someone who wants to go back and get some Eastern Kingdoms rewards, if you didn't get them from doing the racing before, feel free to do that. That is basically dragon riding courses or dynamic flight courses spawning throughout Eastern Kingdoms. You earn a currency. You can take that currency to a vendor and buy cosmetic rewards for not only your mounts, but just for your character. So if that's something you're looking to do, there's achievements associated with it. You can get that done. I'm really glad these are just cycling their way back every now and then, because I was not able to do all of them when they first came out. It was just wasn't a time when I was able to play a lot of WoW. So it was low on my priority list. They come back, I get to do them. It feels great. And I think this is probably a pretty good window for that. We'll be a couple weeks into this patch. It's going to last for, a little over a week. So I think this is probably a pretty good time for them to get this back out there for folks to try.
Yeah, this is not this reset coming up, it's next reset. So
yeah.
There's a little bit more room to breathe on it. And these are really fun. I did all of these the first time around and got everything. We'll see if there's new stuff. We'll report back when we can. But I just wanted to throw it in there because it is the next limited time event coming up, even though it's kind of a minor one. But it's really fun. I like what they did with the courses and the old world content. Originally, it was kind of to show off, hey, you can do dynamic flight in the old content now. Obviously that was a couple years ago and now we're used to it, but still fun to do. It's a cool event. And I'm glad it turned into a regular thing. We said that when they were new, like, man, I hope this isn't the only time they ever do this. And it probably won't be, but it's definitely not. So keep that in mind. If you wanted to do those and didn't get a chance to, or you weren't playing when they were happening, those races will start up in about a week and a half, and you'll have about a week, to go through them and get some unique stuff to the event.
Yeah. Okay, before we dive into hotfixes, I wanted to mention this because this is something I've submitted on multiple feedback areas towards Blizz devs. I just want to mention it here on the show too. I really, really want them to make a change to something in the game. And that is that when you go to catalyze boots, they should be the Reshi Wraps procs more frequently boots. They should not be just a random set of boots from the dungeon, like not random, but a set of normal boots from the dungeon. Catalyzing boots in the catalyst should give you the boots that everyone is after. The reason why we have the catalyst is to make tier sets easier to get. It's the pieces everyone is after. We should do the same thing with these boots. It makes no sense that I would catalyze boots into normal boots when you're already well aware that everyone is going to want these optional boss boots that drop out of this raid. So I want to put that out there as a note on the show, as well as the other avenues I've put out there. Please let us catalyze boots into the Reshi Wrap boots.
Oh man, that is so OP. I don't know about that one. That would be awesome. I mean, that is one of the big prizes for cantrip items. I wonder if they'll be available, from the thing we'll talk about in a little bit later. So there might be an alternate way to get them. But also then all the mod collectors will be like, dude, I need the ones that match my set. I can't have those. They don't match. I have to get ready for my house. I'm retiring to become a cozy housing player. So I don't know. That's a tough one. But the boots are really cool, and it's it's something everybody's going to want.
Everyone's going to want these boots. Who's doing the raid? They literally make all the power on your cloak procs 30% more frequently. Why would you not want that? Everyone wants that.
Or higher. When you get higher, it scales with your upgrade track.
Yep.
So everybody's got to get mythic demon hunter fight down and get their boots.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's great to have items that play off of the cloak in the raid for sure. But accessibility is also a thing. So you definitely want to have them. So, but hopefully there'll be at least one alternate acquisition method during this raid's life cycle, in addition to actually having it drop.
We've already run into the problem that we killed the boss this week and got 3 pairs of plate boots, and we did not have 3 plate people who could actually use those boots. That was first week. It was very sad to be like, well, if this keeps happening, if you keep having week after week where you're getting 3 sets of what armor type, whatever, sure, those people are going to have them very quickly, but then you're just going to start destroying these things on a regular basis and frustrating people. So
I have had moments lately, which I never thought I would have, where I'm like, man, I kind of wish personal loot was back. Like, it's actually, like, not the way that we had it necessarily, like personal loot, but with better trading rules, at least for guild groups or whatever, or some designated set groups or something. Like, because, wasted loot is so brutal, and it's especially bad early season or when there's really unique stuff like this. And it's just the restrictions around, like, well, I have this thing, but I can't trade it to my friend because it's better for them and they really need it or they wanted it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just WoW is at its best when it's a social game, and the co-op elements of WoW will make it really fun, and not being able to cooperate the way you want to, it feels bad, and getting stuck with dead loot feels bad. I realize that this has always been an issue, and it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like what the developers want, right? They want friction to you getting the thing that you want, that makes you feel cool and powerful, and that helps you do something more efficiently or do something you couldn't do before. That is literally the point of the game. So I understand that, but I never thought I would be like, personal loot was kind of better sometimes, because I was like, I want to be able to distribute loot how I want to distribute it. Yeah. It's a raid team. It's the same roster week to week to week. If there's hurt feelings about loot distribution, that's a social engineering issue. It's not a problem with the video game. And lately I've definitely been feeling like, personal loot gave us more just loot going out in general.
Yep.
And yes, the trading restrictions were restrictive, but especially for doing like normal, just kind of, starting the season up, starting the engine, and you're just getting those initial kills and getting your feet wet with the raid. And how many metaphors can I mix into the sentence? Sure. But, that's where it really hurts, where it's like, oh, wow, we had 26 people in the group, so we didn't roll up that extra piece of loot, and none of this stuff is really good for anybody, and everybody's just rolling transmog on it. It's like, well, that really feels bad like first week of the season. You're doing normals and a bunch of belts drop, and you're like, oh, great, bunch of belts. Perfect. Yeah, right. Yeah, get those champ belts going for sure. Yeah. All right, hotfixes. Achievements. They addressed an issue where Keystone Hero Tazavesh, the Veiled Market, was not earned upon completing both Tazavesh Streets of Wonder and Gambit in a 10 plus or higher within the time limit. They also addressed an issue where Keystone Hero achievement was not granted upon completing a 10 or higher Keystone and Halls of Atonement within the time limit. So those both got fixed for achievements, if that's something that you were trying to earn for the season. The Restoration Druid, they fixed a bug causing Swiftmen's enhanced by ornaments of the Eagle 4-piece bonus to not splash healing onto allies. Thank you. Because that's really one of the really fun things, is splashing the healing around. And every time you splash, a whole bunch of flowers burst out of the person and spill all over the ground. It's absolutely hilarious, and I love it. And it feels really good when you just are in a group or in a raid and you just watch like people exploding with flowers everywhere and healing everyone around them is really nice and fun. So I'm glad Druid is hitting that mark at the moment. When it comes to prop paladins, they fixed an issue where Sanctuary and Undisputed Ruling, where players could lose the benefits of consecration if 2 or more were active when the first expired. So overlapping consecrations and other benefits happening and it creating issues. So they got that one fixed up for players, which was good. And in Arcane Mages, who are currently cranking damage, it's amazing what they're doing at the moment, Netherflux no longer has a grace period after receiving damage from arcane missiles, as well as they fixed an issue causing Netherflux to be castable while silenced. So I'm glad that one got fixed, because that's a pretty big one of like, hey, you know what? I guess this just doesn't count as a spell school. I could just throw this out whatever I want. And they fixed an issue causing the 2-piece and 4-piece set bonuses, PvP only reductions, to not apply, which meant you had Arcane Mages going into PvP and just blowing people up because they didn't have the large reductions that were supposed to exist for their set bonuses. So yeah, that was a big one there that they wanted to fix. Apparently Fire Mages were doing some silly things too, where they fixed an issue where multiple casts of Fireball could all benefit from one instant of Flame Accelerant. So you essentially had, some large buffs happening that shouldn't be happening. When we look at Delves,
They made it so that using waygates to change levels in Archval Assault should no longer break stealth, which is big, because in a lot of cases, those waygates in that new delve drop you on top of enemies. And so if you're a rogue, for example, and you want to do your nice big opener and surprise everybody, you can't do that. Also, if you're somebody who's trying to sneak through a delve and not have to kill all the trash, it, obviously was removing that too. So that was big. I'm glad they got in and fixed that one. Over in Krieg Falls Rest, exiting the ethereal routing station via the ethereal portal will now always spawn the corresponding entrance portal, which is also helpful because being able to get in and out is important. So I'm glad that actually happened. For folks that may have left one and then not been able to get back to it would be very unfortunate. And they fixed an issue where completing Bountiful Delves would not grant any progress towards Delver's Journey. And that's kind of the big one that we wanted to touch on. Out of this chunk of the notes, what was happening was you were getting the reputation and progress for actually doing the delve itself, but you were not getting the hundreds of renown or reputation or progress towards the Delver's Journey that normally comes from doing the bountiful side of it. And so what this effectively evened out to being like, as opposed to, let's just use 11s, as opposed to getting 720 progress, you were getting like 480 progress. It was dramatically different, and it was a similar thing happening with 8s, where as opposed to getting 300 or 280 or whatever it is progress for doing a bountiful 8, you were getting like 100. And so in most cases, people's progress almost doubled from where it was once this hotfix went in. They announced this hotfix was coming before it actually went in, which actually took another day for it to go in because they did a short maintenance the next morning. Then that all kicked in. And that is where I jumped from, I was 3/4 of the way, I think I was 3/4 of the way to 1 or something like that when this happened. And it jumped me to halfway to 2. And I was like, oh, okay. That now feels a little better. Now I'll actually put a little bit of effort into doing some 11s, see if I can get there. I got to 2 last night, so I need to run 1 today to get my map and complete it and get my heroic piece for the week. So that helped out a lot. I have still run 12 delves this week, which I feel like is a lot of delves to run to try and earn a heroic piece. It'll end up being 13 by the time I'm done this, but that's just the system they put into the game, and that wouldn't have changed based off of this particular fix. This particular fix just helps everyone going forward and kind of explains why it looked like it was going to be such a massive slog early in the week. People were talking about months to get to the point where you could get heroic pieces based off the progress that was happening. And it was just a bug where we weren't getting granted half of the reputation or progress towards the journey that we should have been.
Yeah, I was halfway there just from week 1 because I had done so many multiple characters, because I had to unlock 11s, which was a whole thing, and then you got to fill out with 8s or higher and then do it again. But I was still like, I got to be really deliberate here about how I do this because I want to get, so that's why I did all my 11s first, and I was going to continue to do that. I don't think I got into all delves by the time this fix came in. So that was nice. I was able to go, the fix is in. I see my bonus progress. I've now zoomed past the first rank, and I'm close to. I'm halfway to the second rank from the first rank. So let's start doing the alt 11s, and then we'll get there. So kind of unfortunate. In the grand scheme of things, probably not a big deal, but it's also the worst that it's going to feel, right? Having it messed up to start the season and then affect people into the first we had patch week and you could start earning some progress, but no bountifuls, right? So it was kind of hard to tell what the overall thing was going to look like. You get so much extra progress out of the bountiful caches. And then we got into it and it's this bar is not really moving that much. And we can't get maps until the second part of this. So seeing that come through, I think it was, they did maintenance on, did they do maintenance on Friday, I want to say? And then I don't know. This week is a blur, and I played a lot of WoW, but they did some late week maintenance, and then this hotfix applied, and I was like, okay, now it's time to check the stuff off the list for the week. Let's hit the 11s and let's start getting maps going and all that. So that was good. It should be up and running normally now, and because that was the biggest thing was what's it called? The courts, the item that summons Kaiveza. If you don't get attacked by Kaiveza, summons Kaiveza at the checkpoint. that then guarantees the map drop.
Yeah.
That then you can use right away and get a hero piece from that current delve.
Yeah.
That item that costs 2,000 undercoin, which is super valuable right now, if you just walked into a delve Tuesday morning and got to your checkpoint and used it and killed Kaiveza, you weren't getting a map.
Yep. I did exactly that. I literally went in, used one of them, fought Kaiveza. Kaiveza did the teleport away and left the item. I opened it and didn't get a map. It was like, what am I missing? And that's when I realized the journey was, no, you have to get to step two of the journey. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Where am I now? Oh, I'm 400 points into the journey and I need 8,200 points to be able to get to the map. This feels good. I've already I ran 8 delves last week. I've already run delves this is terrible. Like, it was just, that was not great.
I think there's a conversation to be had about should the maps and all that stuff be tied to the journey, and I would lean no. I think you should just be able to gear out from playing.
Agreed.
And the journey should provide you cool bonuses along the way, but the gearing is too fundamental to just the overall gameplay. So I would kind of lean towards just detach that from the Delver's Journey piece, but at least it works now. And I think the way that it's going, like if you do bountifuls and stuff, it shouldn't be too bad to get to that threshold.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this, do they have it that way because they want to throttle delvers and people who just primarily gear through delves a bit and like extend that tail? I hope not, because you're getting one random drop piece from that, and then you get to pick one piece at the end of the week. That's all the hero track you're getting from delves. And most of what you're going to get is trinkets. It's just the way the system works. There's 12 trinkets in the pool. You're going to get trinkets from this over and over again. So yeah, a little harsh on that distribution, but it should be easier, much easier to get to the threshold to start using the maps now.
Yeah. Okay. When it comes to dungeon and raid hotfixes that went out, apparently Lindormi was failing to trade people's keystones out for other ones on completed Mythic Plus dungeons within the time limit. That got fixed, so that's no longer a thing. I know that was fixed early in the week because I was able to swap them out no problem early when I was doing my bounce arounds on different keys. In Arakara, the insatiable damage has been reduced to 30% from 50%, that damage increase on the first boss, as well as the starved crawlers can no longer critically hit with their melee attacks. This is part of what makes that a viable option. So keep that in mind on that boss. That's a big deal of that damage reduction to be able to do that new strategy, which I love. The Kikital, the Harvester, they address an issue where cultivating poison can be applied to the boss herself, when there are fewer than 3 targets. I think that's hilarious. That essentially the poison was just like, well, it has to go on 3 targets and the boss is one of them. So here you go. That's funny to me. It was helping out groups do that.
I didn't see this. I wonder, was it doing damage to the boss too?
I hope it was. I really do.
Yeah, that would have been the best. Yeah.
The scary part would be it expires and little blobs come out from it, and suddenly you're dealing with the blobs coming out from it, and you didn't know they were coming, and they just surprise a tank and kill your tank. But yes, that was a thing. The Speaker Shadow Crown over in Dawnbreaker, they reduced the absorb shield by 30. The healing absorb has been reduced by 33% for Shadow Shroud, so that should be easier. And they also fixed an issue that caused Shadow Shroud's healing absorb to not scale with keystone level. So they may have reduced it, but they also made it so that if you do higher keys, it's going to be harder. So keep that in mind. In Ecodome Eldani, they adjusted spawn locations of the Frenzied Mites to be more consistent, as well as address an issue causing Awaje to unintentionally reset. Yeah, bosses resetting is not fun, so glad they fixed that one. And then Halls of Atonement needed some fixing. There was some broken stuff going on in here. The High Adjudicator Elise, the Pulse from Beyond's damage now occurs every 1.5 seconds as opposed to 1 second to sort of help people deal with that damage coming in. The Inquisitor Cigars, whatever you want to call it, display of powers damage radius was reduced to 5 yards from 10, so that radius isn't as large. The Manifestation of Envy, the movement speed is reduced by 42%, and melee attacks can only recruit players. So you shouldn't have to deal with those ghosts that chase you just wrecking you anymore. So that should be easier to handle. And finally, Lord Chamberlain, the Stigma of Pride was removed. Ritual of Woe's group damage when it hits a statue has been reduced by 38%. They resolved an issue where Lord Chamberlain's statue collision could persist and essentially just keep doing damage, which sucked. There resolved an issue where Lord Chamberlain's Sinstone statues did not inflict damage to players in their path during telekinetic onslaught, which is like a really unique thing that I guess they caught somewhere. But then they also reduced telekinetic collision by 30% and that damage. So Erupting Torment impact radius was also reduced from 14 yards to 10 yards, and the damage reduced by 22%. So overall, large nerfs to Halls of Atonement. If you're someone who doesn't enjoy it very much, that should be a easier thing for you to be able to deal with. So yeah, good changes.
Goes to show you kind of the philosophy shift from Shadowlands to War Within in terms of like what a dungeon should really entail, right? Yeah, Halls of Atonement's not my favorite dungeon, and I mean, they just should have removed a boss mechanic. You know, that's how much stuff we had going on at one point in time, where I feel like the game was really punishing, I guess, in service of, I don't know, extending the life of the content or something. This was kind of, you know, they designed this dungeon probably before we really had the rotating map pool for Keystone Seasons. So, you know, you want stuff to be really complex, I guess. You want a lot of texture because players are going to be in it for a long time. And now it's not like that. You know, we're going to do this dungeon for a few months, and then we'll be on to whatever the pool is for midnight. And, you know, we'll forget all about Halls of Atonement again. And you kind of don't have the time to dial in with the amount of complexity presented and stuff. And I don't know. I never liked this dungeon in Shadowlands days. My first impression of it, doing it this week, was, well, and I did it post nerfs. I did it yesterday for the first time, and it was like, I still don't like it. I guess it's a bit better than it was when it was current, but yeah, still not one that's really on my list of like, oh, this is fun, or this is just like a nice chill run. It's a lot of pressure on the tank. The pools are huge. They're really spread out. There's some really dangerous tank busters in here. The bosses are all obnoxious. This is just, I think this is going to be the one that I just groan about all season, when it's like the key that we're running for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
Because it happens, especially when it's like we just play together. So whatever 5 keys we have, that's what we're doing. There's going to be weeks where all 5 of us have this one. Yep. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we got to do it.
The second boss in Halls of Atonement, the issue I was running into is he does these pools that he launches out at people, and occasionally that just wouldn't put down the graphic for where the circle's going. And I think it was attached to either our rogue blade dancing or our demon hunter doing something, that if they were being targeted but it couldn't figure out where they were, it just wouldn't place the indicator. And so myself or our mage would just occasionally get one shot because we just had no idea where the puddle was going to go. It was just like there wasn't an indicator. You just shift when it happened and hope you didn't move into where it was landing, and then you just get one shot and die. And you're like, okay, I don't know what that was about. But yes, that was another bug that we noticed in there. All right, in Tazavesh the Veiled Market, there's a couple things in here I wanted to mention. The Hyperlight Bolt and Brackish Bolt now target random players. So this is no longer just only targeting DPS players, it's targeting anybody. So keep that in mind. And that's a thing. And they address some issues where like stuff could become uninteractable, including the mailroom unstable goods, which were really important because that happened once for me in one Keystone where I literally could not pick up the goods to then throw into the right mail shaft, and they exploded and did a bunch of damage. We recovered. We lived through that explosion and recovered, but it was one of those like, I don't know why they became uninteractable. That was a problem. So that got fixed as well. When it comes to Streets of Wonder, they increased the timer, as I mentioned they needed to do. In this case, it was only by 2 minutes. It went from 32 minutes to 34 minutes. I still think it needs like another 3 minutes, in my opinion. They also made it so that the health on the Grand Menagerie was all reduced by 16%. They also changed it so Shock Mine's duration was cut by 12 seconds, down to 24 seconds from 36, and its ability cooldown was increased by 100% for Commander Zofar, so keep that in mind, as well as Lethal Force's damage over time effect was reduced to 3 seconds from 5, so that's also dramatically less healing needed for that, so keep that in mind. Miza's Oasis, the Final Warnings shield has been reduced by 10%, so that's going to be substantially easier to break, which is nice, as well as Brawling Patrons Throw Drink has also been reduced, the damage on that reduced by 50%, which is really nice. And then the big thing is when you break the shield, so when the shield basically goes up, so the Final Warning now pulses arcane damage every 1 second until the shield is broken. So right now, there's no damage when that shield is up, other than people throwing drinks at people. So now even that shield has been reduced so that, hey, when you are trying to break this shield, it should be easier to break even if someone messes up their solo that they're supposed to be doing. However, there's going to be steady damage happening there, which means your healer can't help out with the damage. So I feel like this is still something that is going to need to be resolved, because I still feel like this is a fight that's a very high damage check for that shield if one person messes up their solo. And I think Blizzard has, I mean, they definitely have talked about, and I think it's the right direction to moving away from, hey, really unforgiving mechanics of, well, that person did not click their trumpet in the right direction, so now it's going to be a wipe, would not be a very fun thing for this encounter. So I feel like you should be able to damage your way through that, and obviously as we get more geared, it'll be easier to accomplish that, but even right now, it's really noticeable how tight this is, and I think that they could stand to, if you're going to lose the healer DPS on this shield, they could stand to nerf it by more than 10%. So I would say 30 is what I'd probably nerf the shield by. And then that would be like total, not so 20% in addition to this 10. So you'd actually be like, hey, if someone messes up their solo, you're okay. You can still damage through it and get there, a little more consistently for players. That's my opinion on it, but we'll have to wait and see. And then last but not least in there, Bizarre Overseer, the pierce damage vulnerability debuff value has been reduced from 20% to 10%. So keep that in mind for that. Man, yeah, overall,
Streets,
lots of changes.
Immediately just felt like Streets was overtuned from the word go.
Yeah.
It felt super punishing compared to other keys I was doing. These nerfs were very welcome. The timer feels a lot better. It's a 5-boss dungeon. I mean, it's a big dungeon. The menagerie nerfs are huge. Like, those health reductions feel so much better. And yeah, the Oasis boss. I think I spent over an hour in a relatively high for week 1 Streets earlier this week. We knew it was going to be hard, but we didn't really quite know what we were getting into. And final warning just being insta-death if you couldn't break the shield, and the shield being essentially unbreakable if you didn't perfectly execute refreshing your buff from playing your instrument.
Yeah.
We needed many attempts to get that worked out. And also, like, of course, what happens every time you need to hit your notes and get your, hit your instrument and get your buff refreshed? Well, Ascendant's down, and there's 10 extra plates on the field, and you can't see anything around you. The boss is pushing you back. So that was just frustrating. It feels a lot better now. It not being a total pass fail. Like, if you just live through it, it's not great. It's better to break the shield and interrupt it, but at least you're alive and you can keep doing the fight. So that's a lot better. I mean, Streets overall feeling much better after these. Still might need a little something. It still feels harder to me than...
Yep.
And I think it's okay to have easier and harder dungeons in the pool and have some variety, have a spectrum of difficulty across a pool. It shouldn't be too wide, but it's okay for it to exist. I think Streets is still... I mean, Streets feels like way harder than Gambit to me. And Gambit's just the other half of the dungeon, right? Essentially. And so, yeah, I think it still needs, like, especially being a 5-bosser, the bosses just maybe need a little touch still, just maybe a tiny, smaller health reduction on some of the other bosses. I think Oasis still needs something. It's very hard to read what you're supposed to do optimally in order to, like, actually survive the final warning phase and all that. So,
right.
That's just those are my impressions of having done a lot of keys this week. Streets just feels like you don't want to have that like dead key that nobody wants to do. And Streets was definitely feeling like that to start this week. The question is, even with these nerfs, it feels better, but is the sentiment around it already kind of poisoned, right? Like,
right.
If once it gets a reputation, it sort of takes on another life. So
yeah,
I'd like to see like one other little round of touches to it. Then I think it's pretty well in line with most of the other stuff I've done.
The funniest hotfix for the week out of Dungeons and Raids that I wanted to mention, which was hilarious, for whatever reason, when we kicked off the week, Chrome King Gallywix in Phase 3 has a mechanic where little electric charges sort of travel along a line, and you have to like weave your way ahead of them and then behind them and ahead of them and then behind them in order to actually be able to be in a zone where damage isn't happening. As far as like you broke the place up into into circles that radiate outwards like a bullseye, you'd have to move from like the outer ring to the inner ring to the outer ring to the inner ring kind of idea, with this line of electricity that would travel around in a circle around that entire platform. That line of electricity was going at least 600 to 700% faster. It was like zipping around the room, and teams that went in to try and kill Gallywix early this week were like, we can't, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, it's like, it was almost an RNG of like, okay, just like, it's go now, go. It's like trying to like time it out to like try and cross that line. And it just wasn't, it was not effective. So yes, they fixed that. I don't know why that broke. I think it's hilarious that it did. I felt for the teams that struggled with it, but it got resolved pretty quick. It was pretty hilarious to watch the graphics though, because whenever you watch any ability that's supposed to like progressively move around at like a reasonable pace suddenly go like zip around it, it is hilarious to watch and be like, I don't know how we're going to do this. All right, as far as items go, the Great Vault rewards unlocked from defeating bosses in Manaforge Omega will now scale in item level based on the hardest boss killed that week per difficulty. This means if you defeat one of the last bosses inside of the raid, and you normally get that 4 of 6 because you defeated Nexus King or you defeated Dimensius, all of the loot that would come off of any of the other bosses inside of your vault will be 4 of 6 hero track. That will happen. They are still going to have some limits on Mythic. So if 2 Mythic bosses were also defeated to unlock 1 Mythic raid reward, that item would still be limited to the 2 of 6 Mythic, etc. So you're not going to like, hey, I defeated 2 Mythic bosses and some heroic bosses. Now all my heroic rewards are Mythic rewards. That's not what's happening. It is just in the difficulty that you actually did for that week. So if you did heroic and you defeated, Nexus King Salazar, you have now essentially unlocked 4 of 6 for every slot you had inside of that. If you can kill enough bosses for every slot you had inside that raid for that difficulty. So if you killed enough bosses, all of those bosses would then be rewarding from your vault 4 of 6. Very cool change. Really happy to see it. This is a very nice sort of thing to throw to players to be able to get some really powerful rewards and save some of that Valor Stone and badge business that can happen with some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a really nice feature. It definitely will save people a bunch of crests and Valor Stones and all that. I think for me personally, it probably doesn't do too much for me, but that's, it's still a good change. It would be really cool if it would, like, whatever the highest track that you unlocked, if everything moved to that track. Well, I understand that they're not going to do that. Like that, no. That's what it would need to be for me to benefit from it. But yeah, like, hey, if you were looking for a thing from an earlier boss and you cleared normal, you cleared heroic, whatever, you don't have to spend anything to get it up to that item level from to 4 of 6. So that's cool. It's just a more efficient way to power up and use your currency, your capped time limited currency over the season. Exactly. It's nice.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing for me is just saving that capped currency and really feeling like there's a larger reward for progressing farther or getting those later boss kills, which I think is really nice for that. As far as trinkets from Ulduar goes, if you're someone who did that, they did nerf them by 5% just across the board as far as their effects go, just to ensure that they are not better than current raid trinkets. So keep that in mind. If you're someone who picked up one of those, that is probably a little bit less effective than it used to be. Okay.
Which they had to do. It has to because you can't like grind these. Yeah. You had like one shot at them, and you, as we talked about last week, unlikely that we'll see Wrath of the Lich King time walking back around the season.
This expansion.
These trinkets were, this season is the end of the expansion. Yeah, so that's it, right? It's just they couldn't be competitive. They couldn't be important because there's just no way to reacquire them. You had one shot ever at it, and if you got it, awesome. But it shouldn't, if you want to use it, cool, but it shouldn't be a thing that competes with loot that is in the current content pool, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Class tuning, because there was a lot of class tuning that happened. Basically, Kaivax comes in and says, obviously, with all this data that we're gathering, there's adjustments we need to make, and so they're trying to figure out when they're going to do it. So all these happen, which makes sense, with Reset on August 19th in this region. We'll see these hotfixes go live for folks in our region. Obviously, EU, you'll be with your Reset. But Fire Mages, all damage dealt increased by 4%. Flame Strike damage increased by 8%. Warlocks, all damage dealt reduced for Affliction by 3%. This was coming. This actually probably isn't enough, to be honest. Affliction Warlocks, who I love, because I love any kind of rock class, it's just a really fun playstyle, are just stomping. Doesn't matter if it's AoE pulls, doesn't matter if it's single target pulls, they are dominant. So this was coming. I think they all Affliction Warlocks knew this was coming. This 3% is probably still keeps them in first place, just edges the top end of that off a little bit. Arms Warriors, all damage dealt increased by 8%. This was needed. It's good to see this come in for folks. And then there's been this little revolt that's taken place by the Ret Paladin community. Apparently, after Ret Paladins felt that they were underperforming, and, to their credit, sure, they were one of the lower performing classes, they decided that they were going to shut down their community Discord for Ret Paladins until Blizzard made changes to Retribution Paladins. And so Blizzard has dubbed that there'll be a 5% damage increase for Retribution Paladins. And the Retribution Paladins are now holding out as though some sort of unionized Retribution guild has taken place. That they will not reopen that until these numbers hit double digits, is what they have expressed. I don't really know how I feel about this. It's kind of like a weird, wonky thing to have going on with class balance, where a few people who control a Discord server that thousands of people use have made a decision for those thousands of people that they're going to deny them those resources in order to try and convince Blizzard to buff their class in a class balance field higher than what Blizzard has currently buffed them. I think that's a very strange thing to do. It was funny the first couple of days that they did it, and then Blizzard announced these buffs that were happening to classes to try and balance them, and then they're like doubling down, and that to me is like, okay guys, like people use this as a resource. There's lots of people who use this. It's weird that you're continuing to deny them access to it, because you and the other admins of this have made a determination for everyone involved in it that you want to hold this hostage essentially from them, which just feels weird. So yeah, it's going on. Ret Paladins, we'll see what happens with you. I think overall you're probably still doing better than some other classes. You're not the bottom of the barrel, but we'll find out, where stuff lies once more tier set bonuses and stuff come in for a lot more players and more data gets out there.
Yeah, until you have a lot of consistent data with everybody running 4 pieces and stuff, it's tough. But yeah, I mean, it was looking like they could use a bit of a bump. Tuning, as we always say, it's like a moving target. Yeah. It's going to keep continuing, and the data is really going to start shifting as people in larger numbers start powering up, activating those extremely powerful bonuses, stuff like that. So I'm okay with them. These are minor tweaks overall for the most part. Like, when you look at, Arms got maybe the biggest buff overall, but even that's only like it's an 8% aura. So that's, it's nice, but I don't know how much this really shifts the earth really. Yeah. But it's more of a good faith gesture, and it's like, listen, we know we have stuff we need to touch up. We're touching it up. This is going to continue. We're going to have these probably weekly or every other week for quite a while, I would think.
Yeah. Okay, we also cannot get away from mentioning that Gamescom is going to be kicking off this week, and that means that August 19th, there will be announcements taking place out there in Gamescom, and there's things that you're probably going to want to watch. So this is going to happen at 11 a.m. Pacific time, so 2 p.m. Eastern. Is sort of the opening night, and it's night because obviously this is happening in Cologne, Germany, so it'd be nighttime there, daytime here. And what you might want to watch is there's midnight developer panels that'll be taking place. There's going to be players who are getting their hands-on housing experience. So people over in Hall 8, if you're actually attending, can actually meet up with some of the devs and play around with, the housing system. And that's something they can play around with. But I'm sure there'll be lots of content generated from that too, from people being able to watch that and stream it and actually be able to see more of what's going on with housing. There's going to be developer panels where we're going to be hearing directly from people behind the scenes at Blizzard, and we're going to have one on zones and quests and story on August 21st, and there's going to be one for systems download diving deeper as far as the systems for Midnight, and that'll be on the 23rd, and that's going to be with Ian. The one on the 21st is going to be with Ian as well as Maria Hamilton. So that'll be ones you don't want to miss. So obviously the first one would be on the 19th. Gamescom sort of kicks off, and there's probably going to be some kind of announcement that takes place that you're going to want to watch and see. And then the more in-depth panels will take place on the 21st and 23rd for folks to sort of hear from the devs and get some more clear feedback on that. Now, it wouldn't be a Gamescom with Blizzard without them having some sort of creator clash style thing taking place. So on Wednesday the 20th to August 22nd, which is the Friday, you'll be able to essentially watch these content creators that they've brought in compete in dungeons and arenas and housing. Yeah, apparently there'll be like a housing competition where there's head-to-head design challenges with themed base building in 3 timed rounds with 4 different creators a day. So yeah, if you want to watch some housing competitions, that's apparently also happening. So lots to take place at Gamescom. Certainly worth checking out. It kicks off on the 19th, runs all the way through the Friday on the 23rd. And I'm sure a lot of this will end up on YouTube and whatnot for you to watch if you can't watch live, obviously, because it's happening in the middle of the day during a work week for those of us who have jobs that have regular schedules. I don't, but I have one that's a very irregular schedule, but I understand there's a lot of people out there who do. So yeah, this is certainly something you'll want to watch for the VODs for, so you can actually, watch this later on after it's taken place and catch up on all the news, or listen to TSE next week when we talk about it. That'll be the other thing that we're able to do.
Geez, this is going to be a huge news week, obviously. Like, we're getting the cinematic on Tuesday, which is going to be really cool. If you watch some of the stuff they put out for teasing the Gamescom presence, there's been little frames of stuff that certainly looks like it's the fully rendered cinematic. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, that's going to be huge this week. And I mean, this is like it's going to be like a BlizzCon style expansion reveal. We're going to know everything that they are comfortable letting us know about Midnight next week. So it's going to be a ton of stuff to absorb and pay attention to, and for us to dig into on next week's show. Yeah, it's big. It's kind of, it's weird to think about it because we've been on this kind of cadence for the last many years, but this expansion should be out a lot sooner. I'm pretty sure that on Tuesday at opening night live, when they do the whole big thing, I feel like we're probably getting a release date, or at least a release window. I'm pretty sure we're going to see pre-sales go up right after that presentation. Like, it's happening. It's midnight time. It doesn't feel like it should be, but it's, they're going to start cranking up the machine for the Midnight expansion, and we're going to know, where are we going and why, what are we doing there? Why are we doing it? How are we approaching it in terms of systems and all that? Like, it's really cool. It's going to be tough for me with timing. I don't know when I'll probably be watching this stuff like after raid and dungeon nights and whatnot. I don't know. We'll see. But, it's not really like around a weekend, and it's, 6 hours ahead of my time zone and all that. So it's a little trickier than like I'm on vacation and I'm in Southern California and I'm going to watch the expansion reveal now, please. But that's okay. It doesn't really diminish my excitement at all, other than like it's just, I got to fit it into a schedule to actually watch it all, which I want. It's always best to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, right? Like, I don't want to read recaps on the website. I need to watch these and hear everything in context and, see what they present. But yeah, it's going to be really cool. And, one of the big things, I guess, for this show is going to be really showing off housing to the public. They're doing the housing creator clash thing, which sounds like it'll be fun. Just like, hey, build a house around this theme and then they'll have it judged or whatever. That's cool. And there's going to be, people will be playing it on the floor. So I'm sure we'll hear a lot of feedback and a lot of impressions of the housing system just from the public. Up until now, it hasn't been anything that's been outside of Blizzard's offices. So really exciting stuff. Definitely, we'll be spending a lot of time sitting with this stuff this week coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Okay, so we're already 2 hours into this episode because it's a hefty episode. And there was a Wowcast episode that came out this past week talking specifically about Legion Remix. So I'd encourage everyone to at least go and watch the blog, if not watch the episode, where Bethany Hudson, the community manager for one of the community managers for WoW, talks with Josh Aaron Miller, who's the content designer, as well as lead game producer Ray Bartos, about the Legion remix and what's happening with Legion remix, because there's a lot of information in there, but some highlighted parts that we want to be sure that we sort of cover and encompass in this is that they've added new gameplay systems with an eye towards capturing the spirit of the original Legion experience. Their goal is to create opportunities for challenge and strategy that players will eventually dominate with epic power. And so as far as remixed artifact weapons go, instead of the cloak and gem systems from the remix of Pandaria, they're going all in on artifacts. So every artifact weapon shares a powerful trait tree, which is right out of Legion, and you'll choose a path to go along, either nature, fell, arcane, storm, or holy, and you won't be locked in, and you can respec this at any time, is like a really big part of this. So you can actually just control click to spend your remaining infinite power purchasing towards your selected point. It's so you can actually just dump everything in really easily by control clicking, and you control right click to refund all that back for that point if that's something you want to do. So it's a super flexible system for folks, and you'll also find jewelry along the way that lets you add ranks to traits from your from any path. Taking ranks from other paths or boosting your chosen path beyond its normal limits. So yes, there'll be lots of boosting and respecking and changing of things if that's something you're wanting to do and try out and practice different things that are happening in there. So that overall is a really good change that we're seeing.
Very streamlined, very flexible. Every artifact has the same traits, so you just play what you want, what you think is cool. You invest in whatever traits that you want to use, and you switch them if you don't want to use them anymore. It's an artifact weapon in terms of, power level and, visual, but not the familiar system from what you might see in, like a Legion Classic someday, where you're like grabbing artifact power to get this next trait. You buy this next trait, you have it forever. This is much more flexible. And it should be like, okay, you're powering up down this, school. And if you get other stuff, you can add it in, or you can power up stuff you already have even higher. And if you change your mind, you can just change it. Just go change it how you want it to be. More very Diablo 3-esque is what it seems like in the terms of the flexibility. Just move your points around, put them where you want them to go. Try a different build.
Yeah. Now, each day, players can choose new research assignments to undertake, such as killing demons, running a dungeon, collecting bronze orbs, while skywriting, and more, with over 100 quests available and the ability to unlock access to take on multiple at once. You'll have plenty of options. But they say each day, and so you might be worried about, like, hey, do I have to be in there each day doing these things? Don't worry. You won't need to check in every day and can bank up to 6 days worth of quests that you can do when you're ready to take them on. So whether you're taking part in Legion Remix daily or only have time on weekends, you'll be ready to go. So that's another great change, something I've been advocating for a while, of, hey, not everyone has the playtime to be able to do this. It'd be great if these things banked up so you could actually just have a Saturday where you play for 5 or 6 hours and just do everything. Like, that might be what people have playtime wise.
Yeah, this is a great addition. I mean, my little editorializing on Legion Remix is putting it into .5 is way too early. I'm going to be way too busy with Season 3 still by the time this kicks off. I have mixed feelings about my experience in MOP Remix, and I don't know that I really want to engage heavily in another Remix experience. That said, there are some factors here that make me go, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. And being able to say, like, okay, I have a day where I go around and do my remix stuff and I feel good about it. That seems pretty cool. Like, I love that idea of bank up 6 days worth and then knock them all out back to back. That sounds great. So really nice addition there. A lot of MOP Remix was like, okay, log in, do your scenario, do your dungeon, do your LFR, whatever. Like, just bang, bang, bang. Like, do all this stuff, get your daily bronze caches. You got to get bronze. You got to get more bronze. Just keep doing it. And, it was a very condensed and accelerated process. And there were a lot of days where I didn't want to log in and do my scenarios. Yeah. But I sure wanted that bronze so I could buy all the stuff. So, yeah, if it's more of a weekly cadence sort of than a daily thing, that sounds much more compatible with where I'm going to be at with 11.2 season 3 by the time 2.5 comes in.
Yeah. Now, you might be wondering what sort of benefits are happening with this. In this blog, they talk about the Fel-infused class mounts that are going to be existing, the elegant elven Ashara-inspired robe transmogs, Manaroth's shield transmog, as in the breastplate that he wears. It will be available as a shield transmog. Varian's Fel-corrupted swords, if that's something you want, which is very cool looking, as well as plenty of never-before-released mounts, transmog sets, and more. So there's going to be a lot in here for you to get in there and check out as far as rewards go, if that's something you're looking to do. There's certainly some things on my list, like Varian's Fel-corrupted swords, that I would love to have and may put the effort into getting the bronze to be able to get those specific targeted things. But I'll probably wait, like Jason said, until a little bit farther into this Legion remix before I actually feel like I have time to step away from Season 3 to be able to be dedicated to doing something like this. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see where this ends up for me. It's going to run for a little bit. So I might be one of those, like, the final month I actually start really participating to get the few rewards that I want kind of thing.
Yeah, a cool thing that they repeatedly mentioned in the video, it's not really in the blog as much, but, they're rolling this out in phases. And so, like, every other week is going to be a new phase rollout, which unlocks more content. There was a lot of content in Legion, so yeah, I guess it makes sense. There's just a lot more stuff to do than an MOP, so that's good. But one thing they said is that the first 2/3 of the event basically are going to be the phases and the rollouts, and then there's going to be the final third is going to be everything. So if you want to binge it later on, everything will be unlocked at that point, and it's going to be up for a while once they get there. So that sounds like a good model overall. I mean, balancing your time between different versions of WoW is a serious concern. I feel like they've gotten to the point where I think, for me, they're officially throwing stuff at us too fast. It sounds like, from what we know right now, that it doesn't sound like there's a ton of new stuff coming in 8.2.5. That would have been a different expansion entirely. Yep. In 11.2.5, it doesn't sound like there's much new coming other than Legion Remix. So that might give us sort of a chance to have a breather. Like on 11.1.5, we can debate the merits of the stuff that came in, but there was a bunch of new stuff to do, and I spent time doing it. So maybe this will be the case where, well, there isn't as much of that to do. So outside of, group raid and dungeon time, I'm remixing. Maybe that's kind of the idea, and that's okay with me. But yeah, like having just reassuring players up front, like we are going to give you time to experience this at your pace. And yes, we are going to have a tail on it where you can benefit from everything being unlocked and do everything you want to do. That sounds really good, and I'm glad that they kind of baked that into the initial announcement video.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that people noticed from Pandaria was that you were required to use bronze to upgrade your gear. That's not going to be a thing anymore. There's not going to be items that upgrade your gear that drop from content, and the harder content you do, the higher your chances to find these items to do that. So you won't be spending bronze on upgrading your gear. You'll just be spending on the rewards that you want to purchase.
Which is awesome, because like the problem that I ran into in Remix, part of the reason why I had to do my daily scenarios that I didn't want to do was because for step one was to get the max item level, which was just an obscene amount of bronze that you're grinding, and you're doing this content that is pointless other than the fact that it rewards bronze and that you can power up from. You're not gaining power from doing the content. You're only gaining bronze. And then, the first order of business is to power yourself up so you get solo raids or whatever, right? And then from there, now you can most efficiently get the rest of the bronze you need to buy the cosmetics. Now, like, stuff will just drop and you'll just get meaningful gear upgrades. It's not like some floor where it's like you upgrade from with bronze. That sounds a lot better. It makes the moment-to-moment content seem like it will be more engaging and fun and less of a slog for a currency grind. So I think maybe that is a critical change for me. Maybe I'll look back on Legion Remix and think more highly of it than my current feeling is about what I did with myself in MOP Remix. Maybe I think it's a good direction.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good direction as well. I like the idea of just having a currency that's used for cosmetics. It just makes things a lot simpler as far as that goes. Okay, and the last thing that is mentioned in this that we want to really sort of weigh in on that note was that they mentioned that the Turbo Boost event is also going to be returning shortly after 11.2.5. Now, shortly after might mean 11.2.7. We don't know, but they just say it's arriving shortly after the release of 11.2.5. So that could be in a couple months. That's literally what we're looking at. It could be a couple months from now. We are entering into Turbo Boost phase. And Turbo Boost phase will have the cooldown manager information frame changes that we're expecting for hiding spells and that kind of stuff. That's all supposed to be part of the 11.2.5. That is currently on the PTR for people to sort of hop in and check out the 11.2.5 patch. Legion Remix is in its final week, so there's very little time left for you to actually PTR test any of the Legion Remix stuff you want to do. But in PTR notes, they do mention that Turbo Boost for Season 3 is going to increase your upgrade tracks for Heroic and Mythic from 6 steps to 8. So you'll see that happen with the initial release of 11.2.5. There'll be crafted items that will be recraftable with the augmentation matrix as well to make sure that they also get that similar boost. We will see ethereal void splinters that may be earned inside Mythic Plus dungeons and Mana Forged Omega and Delves and Rated PvP. So these ethereal void splinters will be added back in. We're going to have essentially the ability to earn, once again, 3 of these similar puzzling cartel chips that will let you then visit the vendors to purchase items again. So we're going to have the cartel chip system back. That will be happening again, where you get 3 of them and you're able to then purchase season rewards, essentially, gear rewards that you want from those. So that's going to be happening again. You'll be able to transfer Valor Stones amongst your Warband again. That'll come in with that. The Warbound until equipped gear drop rates in Mythic Plus are going to get cranked up, as well as in the raid, so that you'll see a lot more of that gear dropping for you to share around for folks. And then the 694 Delve trinkets can now also be purchased from a vendor once that happens as well. So lots of things coming with Turbo Boost. As much as we might see 11.2.5 in a couple of months, I still feel like this will be a few weeks after that. So I don't think this should discourage anyone from putting effort in now, because stuff is still exciting and fun and whatnot. It is always weird when Blizzard starts talking about the next thing, which we're about to talk about the next expansion next week. So, hey, they're about to talk about the next really big thing that's going to happen. And finding that there's a certain cooling effect that happens on the game, and whether or not people sort of drop off a bit to wait for that next thing to happen. I hope that doesn't happen with this, because I think Season 3 is going really well, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm just hoping that this is more motivation for me to have my Myth Track gear ready to go up those additional steps, my crafted stuff ready to get boosted up that additional item levels, looking to finish the raid progression by the time that this goes live. Like, those sort of objectives and goals still remain there for me, as opposed to like going, I'm just going to check out for a bit until this kicks in. So hopefully that happens.
Got to get your 12s done. Got to get your Resilient 12 so that you can get your Mythic trinkets off the vendor when this comes in. Yeah, I'm glad they threw this in there. We did get we got a small PTR is up. I just want to mention that as we're wrapping up this discussion. You have 11 days from the time of this recording, so I guess next Thursday-ish would be the day that it's probably coming down. If you want to PTR test Legion Remix, you can do so now, but you only have until then. So make sure you do so if you're interested. There's not much else on the PTR right now, but they did give just the details to confirm that we're looking at the 3 chips. I assume I really hope that they do the same thing they did in Season 2, where let's just start with you get your first 3 chips week 1. Let us buy an item week 1. That was a huge misstep that they instantly reversed course on. Give us the first one out of the gate, So hopefully that's the case. I love Turbo Boost. Turbo Boost, in terms of the item level upgrade tracks, that was the thing that really worked. Like, the chips were fine, and I was mad about the chips, and I feel like rightfully, because they swerved us on the chips pretty hard. But what really made the difference was having stuff top out, 6 item levels higher or whatever. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you apply it to your entire character, that is a massive amount of additional power. And it also, scales you up higher against stuff that wasn't really tuned for that item level. So that was great. And then, once again this season, I want basically the same trinkets I had last season. I want dungeon trinkets, Myth Track, and fishing for them out of a vault can be tricky. So just knowing that I'll be able to get them is really nice. Not to say that if I'm presented with them, I'm not going to take them necessarily, but it informs my decision, right? It helps me know that I'm making a good decision with my vault rewards. So I like that we have this information as early as possible. And yeah, hopefully they keep the timing the same. Also, hopefully Turbo Boost starts like within 2 to 3 weeks of the patch and not like a month plus later. Like, let's not do that. We had all that weird time gating, staggered rollout of 11.1 features, or 11.1.5 features. I'm sorry. Let's not do that again. I get like maybe not having it because of their production schedule and because of how they want to run Legion Remix around having that wrapped up with plenty of time until midnight and midnight pre-patch and all that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best time in the season to launch the Turbo Boost, right? So it's, you have different priorities to serve here, but hopefully it's not we're sitting in .5 for weeks on end until they finally flip the switch. But yeah, I think it's a great concept. I wouldn't be mad to see this come back in future seasons again. Like I thought it was great in season 2, despite my frustrations around the chips. I'm looking forward to it coming in season 3. I think it's a bummer that Legion Remix PTR is so short. I'm not gonna have much time to mess around with it, and I don't know how much I'm really going to be able to play the mode. The timing just seems really tight. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, but I do want to get in there and get that Manoros shield and get the, Fel Corrupted Charlemagne, and the new stuff looks really cool. There's a bunch of old stuff to collect, and they're doing there's some interesting twists to this is not just cut and paste, MOP remix with Legion content. There's a lot of different twists. They're talking about, outdoor world, you'll be able to opt into a heroic tier for the outdoor world that they're saying is like maybe the most challenging outdoor world since vanilla, which is kind of interesting. I mean, if the rewards are there, then that's very interesting. So just some cool twists in the formula, trying to make it really Legion-y. And I think, because of the artifact weapon and stuff, Legion could be a really good case for that kind of experience. But I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. There's just a lot of stuff to process all at once, and I do have other interests and responsibilities outside of World of Warcraft. So there's a question of like, where is the line where it's like, this is stuff I just can't play, and a lot of Classic has fallen on that other side of the line for the last 5-6 years now, and so when does it start being stuff that's like kind of the remix stuff walks the line between Classic and modern? So it's like, does this stuff start becoming a casualty or whatever? So it's equal parts like exciting and frustrating, I guess. But I mean, it's cool that they gave us all this info this early. I didn't think any of this would come out before the race was over. I knew that we were due for 11.2.5 PTR. Once patch is out, then PTR comes up. But I figured they'd hold it back until after the race, but they didn't even bother. It's just like, here it is. It's coming. Just get ready.
Yeah, exactly. All right, with that, let's take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm going to give a special shout out to Arajian, Bradley, Bruce, Chris, James, Garrett, Kapawi, and Shorel. Thank you so much for all that you give towards the show, as well as all of our patrons, past and present. We appreciate you and all that you've given to keep our show alive and on the air. Our Patreon is located at patreon.com/thestartingzone. We have no new patrons to announce this week. However, we do appreciate everyone who helps keep the show and everyone who has helped keep the show on the air and running on a week-to-week basis. So thank you so much. And shout out to our patrons.
Absolutely, patrons. We couldn't do without you. So thanks for supporting us over these many long years of talking about this game and all the ups and downs. And as I like to say, if you liked today's episode, thank a patron.
Yes. That's going to wrap up episode 697 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Blue Sky. You can find us there at thestartingzone.bsky.social, over on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or you can join our Discord server by going to thestartingzone.com/Discord. We have a site that sells off some swag. That's thestartingzone.com. Sorry, thestartingzone.dashery.com. Someone actually picked up some shirts this past week, so thank you so much for picking those up. You can check out all the designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and that kind of stuff, thestartingzone.dashery.com. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internets?
You can find me on socials over on Twitter at Shieldwald and over on Blue Sky at jlucas.bsky.social. I check both sites regularly, but mostly just post stuff to Blue Sky. So come say hi in either place. You can also find video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. We'll be streaming raid and dungeon stuff as we go along. We'll be streaming Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, generally, 7:30 Eastern, generally. So come check that out. Probably no YouTube streams on the menu right now because we still got drops going on. So watch on Twitch and get a free pet.
If you're trying to find me, you can find me over on Blue Sky at spencerhd.bsky.social, on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or you can follow my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thank you so much, and job's done.